Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Actually, you know what, Dustin? Can you just cut back to the kittens for a little bit? How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Honesty Hour. This isn't your first.
No,
this is the first one-on-one.
Yeah, this is first one-on-one.
It's the first time we've got to sit and just chat. Now, you and I sit and chat sometimes just for shits and giggles.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we can go that raw. Is that the right word?
We'll see. Yeah.
I don't know. Is that the right word?
Yeah. Raw.
Raw?
Yeah.
Because sometimes if we're just hanging out and talking, there's a lot of bashing of things people do in the media.
Oh, man. I know, but, you know, that's
so I don't know if we can do that, because this is recorded. It is live. It will go on YouTube.
Gotta just pull it up like,
because last time we did one, you told a story and they're like, yo, you guys got to delete this immediately because I can't have that getting out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, I just start going. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that probably should.
I wonder how many people here know that story and have told everyone already, like, oh, if he told this story, he didn't want anyone to say.
I know. I feel like that's how it goes.
Fladeau says, so this will not be Monday Night Raw?
Yeah.
We're just gonna call tonight Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
Is that familiar?
Yeah, that's a wrestling thing.
I know, I'm being an asshole.
All right, just in case, some people don't know.
Yeah. So we're going to hang out tonight. We're going to talk to Ify. We're going to get to know Ify better, find out where Ify's coming from, which is interesting to me because you've had a very interesting life.
Yeah.
And you're very outspoken, and I like that. So we're going to talk. We're going to hang out. Thank you, Mark Spizzle, for that follow. Appreciate it. So, guys, the way this is going to work, right now we're kind of chilling, but we're about to go into a more kind of interview kind of format. So it can be clipped down, and whoever's making the clip for YouTube, make sure you don't have to start it until we actually start the actual interview part. You can cut all this shit out. People on YouTube don't understand that we're talking to a chat room, and they get all weird about it real quick. But yeah, we're gonna hang out for a while. I'll kind of pull questions out of the chat and off of Discord with my phone.
Yeah.
And so if you guys have questions for Ify, throw them into the Honesty Hour questions room, and we'll answer as much as we can in the allotted time. It always goes longer than an hour, but hey, whatever.
I know, it's a cool name. Like the Honesty Hour in 12 minutes isn't as.
It became a bit, and it won't stop. The bit is like, let's keep Zac up all night, and then go stream in the morning.
Ooh, what you streaming tomorrow?
Atlas Reactor. Have you tried this one yet?
I have not.
Dude, I could get you a code if you want.
Oh, yeah. I'm down to jump
in. You would probably, it's strategy.
Okay.
Turn-based.
Okay, that's, all right. Now
But it's like, you have a very short time to do your turn, so it's pretty intense.
Okay.
Because unlike XCOM, where you could just take all day to do your turn, you have to decide what you're going to do very quickly, and you're on a team, multiplayer, and then all your movements resolve at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like you got to plan your attack and your movement, so you don't know where other people are going to go, and you have to kind of predict that. It's fun. It's fun.
Sounds like fun. Okay.
It's really cool. I can give you a code. We're playing that tomorrow, and it's going to be fun. What's up, Paco GD? How's it going? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk to Ify for a couple hours. We'll answer you guys' questions. We'll talk about all sorts of stuff. I'm sure whatever will come up. I remember now why I stopped doing it. No, Emma was on last week, Paco GD. Emma was on last week. Chaotic Looney says you had me till multiplayer. That's actually what makes it really fun, because we're playing with the community.
Yeah.
We've actually been playing the game with Thumpers in Discord, and it's been really fun, because you can do custom matches, so we've been doing full 5-on-5 matches.
Oh, that's dope.
It's really cool.
You know, we've known each other for 3 years now?
Has it been 3 years, dude?
Yeah, I was on Time Hop, and it was the old Aren't We Clever brunches that we used to do. It was the one that the first one I went to, because I remember we read that one pilot.
We got to save this.
Yeah.
No, I didn't meet you the first time at that.
We didn't meet the first time, but that's when I feel like it locked our friendship.
All right.
So
I'm going to tell people about that pilot.
It's probably 4 years.
I want to find that script.
It was great.
All right, so we'll start it off. All right, so now we're gonna do the show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Honesty Hour. Tonight I am interviewing Mr. Ify Nwadiwe. What's up, dude?
Hey, how you doing?
That was the intro. That was the whole thing. Now it's a real show.
All right.
So Ify and I were just talking about, we've known each other now. He says 3 years.
But I think
I'm
it's
trying to remember
4. Because if you think, because
I met you through Socialtron. No, I met you before Socialtron, because you invited me to Socialtron.
Yeah, because it was at the
Shit.
It was when that whole NBA scandal came out, and we met.
I met before that.
Really?
I met you before that because I remember working with Majid on something at my old apartment before I got into the house.
Oh shit!
And that was when I was working with some of you guys with White Women Comedy, or talking to you guys about doing something.
Okay.
I don't fucking remember where I met you.
Yeah.
Where the hell did I meet?
It was like it was probably like a blur.
I don't. Man, let's see. If it had to be through comedy, it had to be through a show.
Yeah.
It had to be through some sort of
I
comedy
think maybe
show.
you came to a show that
Might have been
I was
even
performing at, and one of Becca's teams were performing at.
probably.
Because I think that's what you said when we worked there. It was like, I always thought you were funny when you.
Yeah, because I'd been following White Women Comedy.
Okay.
And I'd worked with Majid. But I feel like I knew you when I knew Majid too. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Whatever. I started hiring you for some stuff, for some shoots.
Yeah.
And then you said like you felt like it was solidified when I had you come over and do a script reading.
Yeah.
So this.
Yeah, it was, because that's the first time I got to meet you off set, and I was at your house, and you had all the comic books, and I was like, oh, this dude's a nerd like me, and we were talking comic books, and that's the whole reason when I saw Socialtron that I thought of you. It was like, because I was like, oh, this guy's a nerd like me, and he's good with cameras. You got to come see this, and you.
Yeah, so it was actually, you can thank Ify for me knowing what Twitch is and getting involved with Twitch at all. I just realized that you are the main reason.
Oh wow!
That ever happened. Because
I
didn't know what Twitch was at all until you invited me to come do that thing.
Yeah, it was so funny seeing Zac in there, because he totally went in like director mode, where he just was like, oh, you guys could be doing this better, you could do this better, and they were just like, and then next time I came there, Zac had already like set them up. It was insane. I was like,
yeah, that wasn't. That's probably why a lot of people think I'm a dick. Because I just showed up and I was like, oh man, you guys could be doing this better if you did this.
Well, here's the thing, is you produce results, and I think that's what it is. I feel like I talk about this a lot too, because you know Ronnie. Ronnie's bit is, he's like a dick, but he's kind of,
he's hilarious.
He's hilarious. And
Fucking
I think
hilarious.
if you package it with, bringing something to the table and being good at what you do, you can kind of get away with it. Some people are just, and it's not out of like a bad place, and I think that's the big difference. You have people who are a dick, and then they produce shit, and you're like, well, then why am I dealing with your attitude?
I mean, it's all a defense mechanism for me, and I think people who've watched this long enough know. I mean, yeah, I have a general look of displeasure on my face, but that's from chronic pain. That's just like a constant, like, I feel like shit. You're welcome. It's hard for me to always be, yeah.
And we all can't be.
But it's the dick thing's just a defense mechanism, because I'm actually overly too fucking nice to people, and I get taken advantage of a lot because I'm way too forgiving, and I have a lot of people that I'll just keep letting things go, and I'll make excuses for them, and I'll get like blah, and so then the dick thing came as a defense mechanism. But we met through Socialtron Live. Well, not met through it, but I met Twitch basically. Yeah. Through that, and but we were talking about this script reading thing, which it's funny you bring up Ronnie, because originally I wrote that script for Ronnie. Yeah. And it was Ronnie, and the idea was Edward James Olmos running a ghost hunting business, and that Ronnie was playing a guy who was scamming Edward James Olmos, who really believed in ghosts and really believed that he was going to catch ghosts, and Ronnie was going along with it to swindle money out of this guy, and then they end up becoming friends and are an unlikely duo. Because I don't know why, when I saw like a white women show or something like that, and I had a thought pop in my head of like, I would love to see Ronnie paired up with
James Olmos. I still think that's a good pair. I still think you could
pitched it. I pitched that show 3 places.
I know a place you could probably pitch it that has been a better version of the place that you pitched it originally.
Yeah.
We just White Women guys had a meeting with them, and they know what they're doing, and it was so funny because they were like, we're like low budget, so the money we'd send you guys to do a pilot would be somewhere between $85,000 to $650,000, and we're like,
it's pretty low budget. Yeah.
I know. Then Zeke had to open his goddamn mouth, spill the beans. Like, we've worked on cheaper, but I'm like, shut up!
Shut the fuck up, man.
But it's
I mean, if as long as you can get that over 200K, I'm thinking we can make it manageable.
I know we can work something.
We'll work
out.
something out.
Like,
we got we'll find. Don't worry about it. That's enough, I guess.
Yeah, it's like we're just 7 dudes.
I'm pretty sure that NBA sketch we did was for $300.
Yeah,
and we were asked to do it 24 hours before it was finished.
I'm telling you, yeah.
It was like we got a call. Somebody had written the sketch. We gave some notes, found the studio, hired you guys, went out, shot it, edited it, put it up all within 24 hours. I miss those days sometimes, man. I miss those days sometimes.
Don't worry. Like I said, I'm gonna hit you up because
I'll be like,
what's been cool is like a lot of times we'll meet with stuff and people are just like, you work. We'll work with you as you. We'll work with you, and like this place has been like, we're open to working with you as a group and individually. And I was like, all right, cool, because I got some stuff that That's
cool, man. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. So we met through you as a comedian.
Yeah.
And I used to go to a lot of the comedy stuff in LA. That's how I met almost all of you guys that are here. Was through the comedy scene, which I don't get to be a part of much anymore, and I'm not really around because I'm here. Yeah. But I'm glad you guys are coming here because I really love that kind of scene here in LA. There's so many creative people that are just getting shit done. And I always tell people that my favorite part of LA is the hustle. Yeah. And you're definitely a hustler. And a lot of the other people here are hustlers. And I like that because I feel like it still comes from a good place. Yeah. It's not like hustlers like trying to fuck people over.
Yeah, it's like you gotta stay grinding. Yeah. Typically, especially when if to break it down in every aspect of like making it out here, you have to be a hustler. If you want to be a comic, you have to be hustling, going to mics, building your networking. It's so funny because like,
dude, when's your taping?
The 31st, May 31st. So I'm gonna be doing the taping and then coming. It's Wednesday. I'm gonna do it right before Vanquish. So I'm gonna do Vanquish.
The fuck out.
Yeah, and I'm gonna come straight here after.
You're either gonna be like riding a huge like adrenaline high or just fucking drained. It's gonna be one or the other.
Yeah, either you'll know just based on the amount of dumb shit DK does. Like if he's just solemn that day, that's just a defense mechanism to retain energy. But yeah, it's been getting for that, and that was amazing. Like getting that album because if a lot of people.
Wait, so do you have a publisher?
Yeah, it was through New Wave Entertainment.
Nice, man.
And it was just all through kind of happenstance. Like I still don't know how New Wave found me, but they had me do their Hulu show Coming to the Stage. I taped it like a year ago, and my season isn't even out yet. And, they also produce albums. So they've done albums by Ron Funches, Bill Burr. I'm talking like big names. You're walking through, you're seeing like all the different albums that they've done. And I was thinking while I was in, I was like, man, it'd be tight to have these guys do my joint. And like just out of the blue in October, they hit me up, was like, they want to produce your album. And I was like, oh shit. It was great because I wanted to do it because I've been doing stand-up for 5 years, and like my opener is like the first joke I've ever told.
And you kept it?
And it's just because it's about my name. It's the perfect opener, but I'm moving to the point where it's like that means it's a 5-year-old joke, and my voice is changing, and I've already like even before they contacted me, I was already thinking like, oh, I need to stop using, like kind of cycle out these jokes. My voice is changing. These are my old voice. I would love to do an album, and I was on the fence because, like, you know, here comes the hustle. It's like a lot of people do produce their own albums, and you know, but like it's a lot of work. You have to get the equipment, you have to get the space, you have to pay, like you're taking care of all that. Then after that, you have to master it, you have to put it out there, you have to. So like having somebody who's gonna just do, like I get to tape mine and be like peace, and they just take their half of the
you
pie.
just get to focus on the content.
Exactly, and it's gonna be like it's cool because my mother-in-law, you know, she had this Argentine tango band, and seeing just her have to work to like all the work it is to get that out, like something as, you know, niche as like orchestra tango. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do that. It's a lot of, because when you're multi-hyphenated, like this is just one of the many things I do. So I really don't have the time to just be focusing on that.
So let's get into that a little bit. So, you know, I've heard you talk about your upbringing and, you know, where you grew up before. What led you to comedy though? Because I don't know if I've ever had a conversation with you about how you got involved first with improv and then to, I mean, well, was it first improv? Or did you go to writing first and then improv and then stand up? I know you did improv before stand up, right?
Yeah, I did.
When I met you, you were doing improv.
So technically, it was improv first. I've always been a funny guy. I've always been like an artistic guy, but you know, speaking of the upbringing, my father's from Nigeria. He came out here when he was 30. And my mom's from Louisiana, and you know, she came out here to California after she graduated. They met, and they had me, and you know, like the concept of anything beyond being like, you know, a doctor, a lawyer, like, you know, those like staple money-making jobs was beyond my dad's imagination. But growing up, I've always wanted.
So he wanted to push you that direction.
Yeah. He like the.
Was that? Do you think any of that was contributed from the, you know, coming from overseas and like the American dream?
It was not like he couldn't understand being an actor or a comedian. Till like I'd say like 2-3 years. It wasn't until he was able to like watch me on TV and like, you know, because immigrant parents, like all they want to do is brag about their kids, and so the concept of, you know, comedy and acting, if there's nothing to really show, then there's nothing to brag about and there's no worth to it. And because it's, you know, like I used to be very, I used to have a lot of resentment towards my dad because I've always wanted to act, always wanted to be in front. And, you know, in every career, no matter what, you're always going to think, what would have happened if I started sooner? And so like I always used to be, because like growing up, they would have, I don't know if they had this out where you grew up, but like in LA, and I'm pretty sure it's probably just an LA thing, they would do like these like modeling / acting agencies where you call this number and they would make you a star. And I remember
that didn't exist where I grew up.
As I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, that's probably like an LA specific thing. But that was the whole thing. It's like, you come here, we'll make you, you know, are you a funny person? And so one summer I just kept seeing that run over and over and over and over and over and over. And I was like, oh shit.
When you said seeing it run on TV?
On TV. This was a commercial.
So you're like sitting there on TV and you're seeing, like, man, I could fucking do that.
So I'm seeing TV and I'm already wanting to do it because at the time probably watching like Nickelodeon or TGI Friday type shit. And
so that kind of like helped get you excited by it, like watching the Nickelodeon kind of sketch shows with young
with young
professionals?
Actors. Yeah, and I wanted to be that. Gotcha. And so you'd see that and you're like, because you'd see Nickelodeon and that was in Orlando. So you're like, I couldn't do that. So then I'd see this commercial. I go back to school. And over the school year, I decide this is the year I call that number. I'm done. I'm out here. And I was like, at this time, I was well into high school. I think it was like my freshman year. Before my freshman year, I saw it. At the end of my freshman year, I started autographing everyone's yearbook because I was like, and I didn't tell anyone why I was doing this. Like that was just whenever anyone asked me to sign the yearbook, I would just like give an autograph and be like, I thought you were dope, because like I was so sure that over the summer I was going to become a star. I was going to be
Gotcha.
a celebrity. So like I
Gotcha.
wanted to sign it, and I was thinking I was being clever. Like they're going to be able to take this and sell this, you know.
You're like, I'm doing you a favor.
Yeah. But I didn't tell anyone why. Like maybe my close friends, I told them like, guys, this is probably going to be my last year.
And they're like, fuck you.
Yeah. Well, they're like, all right, Ify, you know, like I was already a pretty weird kid. And that summer, I never saw that commercial again. Never. Not run once. So I never had the chance. Like I would stand by the TV with the phone ready to call, and I never saw that commercial again.
Notepads were just a thing of the past that freshman year, huh?
Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, man, pen and paper. Pen and paper.
But I didn't actually get to do any performing stuff till senior year. Remember, my parents just didn't have a scope of, like my dad specifically, because at the time my parents divorced by then, and I was living with my father, and like my mom kind of like, you know, was like, you could do that, but you know, it generally is this whole thing of like after college, you know, is like they just want to
get your degree first.
Yeah, that type of deal.
Then maybe you won't want to do art anymore.
Exactly. So now you're zoning in, because the biggest thing I was getting in trouble for was doodling as well.
Yeah,
so
I got in trouble a shit ton for that.
And I even started,
and
I joined this site called Polycarbon BBS, and it was this guy, Pat. He had a art tutorial site. Mm-hmm. And he was like working, like doing like concept art and video games, and they had a forum. And in the forum, you would do these fight clubs where everyone would do a page of a comic. So you do a action comic together. Everyone, like everyone would pitch their characters, and it would be approved with everyone. And you're basically RPing through art. It was really cool. And everyone would just do a page, and like no one would shit on anyone's art. Like everyone, it was just like a fun collaborative thing, and you'd create this comic together. And so I'd spend so much time doing that, and it was just looked at as like a hobby. Not once did they think, oh, maybe we should like really influence this. Once again, like just art, any type of arts just wasn't on the map. So, but eventually I get burnt out on that, because I finally think like, oh, let me take a drawing class. Mm. And that, oh man, I think Mr. Whitney just destroyed.
I hate to interrupt.
Yeah,
is anyone still in the back, or did everyone leave? Seems like every single person left. People are saying they're hearing audio glitches. Where's your mic pack, by the way?
My mic pack's in my pocket, but I can pull it out.
Pull it out. If it keeps happening, guys, let me know. I'll have to get up and go check something. I'm guessing nobody put on headphones before they left.
Yeah. They probably all went to get some in and out.
Are bad.
Yeah,
always.
You know what they say.
Boxes. Okay.
I'll just put it right here.
Seems to have cleared up. Yeah, it might just be a mic pack.
Yeah.
So continue. Sorry.
So yeah, did drawing class, totally killed like my drive and love for art. You know, which I think was good. If I can't take criticism, which is what it was constant criticism, and it was like looking back when you actually have like the hindsight and growth. It was just really, he was just saying I can do better.
Yeah.
Because like he, you know, I don't know, you went to art school, so you wouldn't, this probably is common to you, but he'd have us do a piece first, and basically that's what he would judge off of, is like how well that piece is. And the thing is like I kind of wanted to do like comic, anime stuff, so like whenever it was like a life drawing, I wouldn't care, and then I would just do whatever, and I would get like a pretty decent grade on it. But then when it's like, do whatever you want, I'd like go all out doing like this, like, you know, comic style art. And the teacher like admitted that he doesn't like abstract or comic art, like he likes life art. And so I would always get a bad grade. So every time I did the art that I want, I'd get a bad grade. Right. So just,
I went through the same phase.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I grew up on comic books.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got to college that I really got pushed.
Yeah.
And was just like, you know, you suck, do better.
Yeah.
You know, had the right professors that really pushed me, and they're like, well, you're here. So,
yeah.
You know.
So then it comes senior year, and I don't even know. Oh, there was always this thing called comedy sports in school, but it was always ASB.
Somebody else talked about that.
Yeah.
Matt Acevedo.
Yeah.
So this must be like an LA thing.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a
Southern
SoCal
California comedy sports shit.
So it's comedy sports, and they're a group. They're like a family friendly.
No, it's Hector.
Hector might have did,
talked about it.
It was like a family friendly improv, like contest type show. It was basically Whose Line Is It Anyway? Short form comedy. And like, but we probably had it since my sophomore year, but all the way, like the way ASB described it on the intercom was like, it's like if jocks did comedy. And I was like, I don't give a fuck about that, you know? Yeah. But then eventually they finally got their shit together and they're like, are you a class clown? This is a comedy thing where you can do comedy. And I auditioned for it, did well. Alex, who was he was like the advisor for it, he was great because even though it was my first year, since he knew I was a senior, he let me play all the games. Like, you know, I did every show. I didn't have to sit out with any show. And he gave me all the privileges as if I had seniority since he knew it was my only year. And I just fell in love with improv, fell in love with comedy. That year, the kind of teacher lead of Comedy Sports also was doing the play. So I did As You Like It, played Duke Senior. So like I was just energized. I finally am doing like what I want to do. I'm like, why didn't I do this earlier? You know, my dad's from Nigeria. They don't, you know, they have Nollywood movies. I don't want, you know, anyone to leave here thinking like, oh, they what they have it, but it just wasn't on my dad's priority list. So, and he came and he actually was supportive. He was like, you could do it. But then I go to community college and everything almost immediately goes downhill because like growing up, I just had this weird concept of like school. Like I just like looking back, it's like, I just didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And it's kind of like that thing where people are explaining things to you, but aren't checking in to really see if you get what's being said.
I went through the same shit. I failed out of my first junior college. Yeah. Because I drew my way through high school. Yeah. Didn't pay attention to any classes. Of course, they passed me because I wasn't stupid. Yeah. But I definitely didn't pay the fuck attention. And then I got to community college and they started throwing these things in front of me and these tests. And it was like, whoa, my brain doesn't work like that. Yeah. I don't think like that. Yeah. Failed out. Like first semester.
It was so insane. Like I didn't even know the real, like when people were giving me like universities to apply to, like I was looking at it, I was like, no, I don't need to go to a university. Like I thought there was a difference between a university and college and not knowing the difference between four-year college and junior college. I thought everyone went to college and then when you wanted to be a doctor, you went to university. Like I'm a comedian for a reason. Like, so like I just had no clue. So I get to junior college and now they're saying like, you know, no one's gonna be calling your parents if you don't go to class. No one's gonna. So I spent like my first.
Fuck it.
Yeah, I spent my first 2 years just trying to get laid and being real bad at it. Like that's what.
Because you were a nerd in high school, right?
Yeah, I was just a nerd, but I was also like the same type of guys that I roast online. Those type of nerds. That was me. I was the guy who like tried to try and pretend like I knew everything, like I was getting laid a lot. I was a virgin until like my senior year, and because we grew up on American Pie, like I had to make sure I got laid before I graduated.
Yeah, there's like social pressure.
Yeah.
Oh no, I went through the same thing, especially as a man. Like you start getting senior year and then all of a sudden it's just like, what are you, gay? And it's like, and at the time when people say that, you know, it's not as like, I mean, because very different upbringings, but some of the overall machoism exists very heavily in our two, you know, cultural upbringings, where there's just this feeling of you have this status quo that you're supposed to hit, and when you're not there, you are seen as completely inferior, and you run the risk of being the shit getting kicked out of you.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And so like, the whole time, like there was so, like I was so off-putting. I think back to like the shit that I would say, and it's like, oh, Ify, that's why you never got laid. Like I thought it was like it was real impressive to be a guy who was like always getting laid, real good at eating girls out. No woman wants to hear how good you are at eating women out. Like no women, like I'm sure they'd love to find out eventually, but when you're just like talking about it,
like a first date kind of thing where you're trying to impress them, and you're like, yeah, I'm really good at this. You'd be amazed.
Way too like, imagine like my level of optimism and charisma and loudness, but just being a 16-year-old horn dog who just thinks the way to get laid is to be already getting laid. Like,
well, that comes from a place of insecurity. Yeah. It's that like, you're so, and I mean, that's, you can see through that shit a mile away when you get older, but when you're in it, you're just like, I have to put on this front. I got to put on this front. I got to put on this front.
And it's so funny because, like, I'm telling you, women see through you like a glass wall where it's like, oh, this kid doesn't get laid. This kid, like, I've like, and it's just so, it just kind of blew up in my face. Never really got laid. And just, I like, even like had a friend who like openly, I think she saw through it too. And she was openly like, you know, because we started getting close and she was like, yeah, you know, I like taking guys' virginity away. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not no virgin. Stupid. Like, it's like, come on, Ify. Come on, Ify. Like, really though? But you know, but it's, you know, it probably is for the greater good, that stupidity. I don't know.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, it is interesting growing up. And this is what I'd love to like dive deeper into, is that sense of like, when you're a nerd, surrounded by people who are threatened by nerds, and then you're threatened by your own lack of understanding of what that means. You know, it's like you understand that you're different. You understand that you're not on the same level as the other men around you in a sense. And I think one of the big turning points for me was when I realized they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And they're just putting on a show. And I remember that was like a huge moment for me that happened kind of in my senior year when I just stopped giving a shit. And you start listening to people talk, and you start seeing them in other social situations. Like, oh, you don't know either. You're all full of shit. We're all full of shit. We're all lying to each other and trying to act like we all have it all figured out.
But you're just like, you know, it's so crazy. Like, it's like I was like the turbo nerd. Like, but my first 2 years, I hung out like with the black people. I don't know why I said it in quotes. They were they were the black people.
I thought you were trying to say that they were like goth, man.
No, yeah. And so we'd all group up and we'd just roast each other. And like that, so technically that was like my first comedy experience, was just roasting. And like I was pretty good at it. Like, you know, pretty much that's just your currency there is how much you make people laugh. And I was pretty good. Like, but I was also the guy who was like charging up his zip zap and racing it while the dude's roasting, and like everyone looking at him was like, yo, if he just pulled out a tiny RC car and played it, or I'd be there, you know, I'd be before school. And it was funny because you would see that because I'd go to school early, play Yu-Gi-Oh! And you'd see some of the like, you know, cooler black kids playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And then like later that day, he's trying to roast me like, yo, homie, I saw you be coming here playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's like, yeah, I was playing against you. Like, you know, like but it's so funny where it's like you know, in high school, everyone's just putting on their best face. So anyway, first 2 years.
It doesn't change though.
Yeah.
You just get better at it.
First 2 years was a total wash. It was so funny because like I guarantee if I just was a good student in college, I probably would have got laid. But I was too busy going on these like burnt missions, which if you don't know what a burnt mission is, it's and every, you know, every region has like a different word for it. But a burnt mission is like when your homeboy is like telling you of this dope party, or like this girl with a friend, or like anything that he wants you to go, and usually it's like a while away, and you go there and it's fruitless. And at the time, my best friend was gay, and all the dudes he was fucking always had some hot best female friend who wanted to fuck, and like I was constantly just driving him to get fucked. Like I was constantly just in this cycle. Like I was so gullible because you would believe it, where he's like, nah, man, he got
you and I went
friend.
Through very funnily similar situations. I had a best friend, but he wasn't gay, but it was just like really like no offense if anyone's watching from West Plains, Missouri, trailer trash kind of area.
Yeah.
And there'd be like these just complexes, and just be like, hey, we're gonna go hang out here tonight. Like, all right, man.
Yeah.
Is anyone else gonna be around that I can hang out
Yeah,
with?
yeah.
Oh yeah. Man, there's this one
gosh,
there's this one girl, you'll like her. She's real different. She's real different. And then he'd end up having like loud sex in the other room while I'm left with a friend in the front. Like, this is really fucking uncomfortable and awkward, and this is not going anywhere, and this is really weird.
Yeah, especially when like if it was almost worse when there was a girl, because usually like she immediately knows what's about to happen, and she is very quick to let me know no. But you know, eventually I started like getting serious about school. Like I got because I got just tired. Like, you know, especially like in the internet age, like you look online, you see all your friends starting to get towards graduating, you seeing them do all this dope stuff. So I got serious about school, started taking it very seriously. I was cared about my grades, and it was going good. And at the time, a lot of things happened. I started performing improv in Orange County area with this indie team where the teacher advisor of my old comedy sports team was like, you could do improv with us. So I was doing improv there, and my dad, seeing how much I was fucking around in college, had me like apply to work for the county, and I started working for the county. So like everything seemed so great. Like I'm taking school serious, I'm doing improv regularly, and I'm like taking classes. But because I'm working a full-time job, like this wasn't like a part-time job. This was like a career for a lot of people. So so the classes started slowing down. I couldn't take a full load that I normally would. So like, you know, it wasn't long before like 5 years passed, and I'm still in school. I'm still in, you know, I'm still doing comedy in the OC, and I'm still working at the county. And, you know, the pay is good.
When you say county, what were you doing?
Los Angeles County Register Recorder. I worked in the birth, death, and marriage department towards the end.
Sounds dramatic.
Yeah. And it was insane. We'll get to those stories. But originally I started working in, I forget the name of it now, but basically when you get a lien against you or any type of that, they have to register it with the county. And so literally what I did is they'd staple the document and have a barcode. I would unstaple the document. And this was a kind of assembly line of workers, and I work anywhere in this line in any given day. But I'd unstaple the document and put it in the scanning machine, and then after it's scanned, it gets stapled again, and then they would QR it, make sure that, so you'd go through the document while looking at the scans, make sure the scans are clear. If there was a mistake, you'd unstaple it, rescan the one page, staple it again, and like somewhere along the way, I was like, wouldn't this be easier if we just didn't staple it to the end? Like I was like, we were constantly stapling and unstapling stuff, and like eventually that got added into it and
changed fucking everything.
Yeah, you just realize like how.
What if?
Yeah, we just didn't, and so eventually, so that was a kind of sweet job because I still got to go to school in the day because I was working from 4 p.m. till about like midnight.
Oh,
so I was going to school in the day, 4 p.m. to midnight, wake up.
And then comedy too?
Not comedy was only on the weekends at this time.
Okay.
And it was like once a month, so it was very sparse. So then like they get rid of that nightly department because we used to get a bonus since we worked through the night, and they just wanted to cut back, and so we all got shifted to the day shift. And that changed my life like that, because the biggest thing that made me still feel like I was still being like a student was the fact that I can go to class in the day with all the young kids.
You go to night classes,
it's older people.
Yep.
Yeah, and so like that just ruined my world. I was mad about it, but then I kind of did it. But then eventually that just became a regular thing. And then like once again, it was like one class a semester. So remember, so eventually I get to this part of my life where I'm like, I've been in school too long. I need to finish this, find out what I'm gonna do. And through this, I've switched my major field. Like I've always wanted to do computer science because I've always been like a big, you know, video game guy. And I was like, oh, maybe I could be a computer science guy. But I fucking hate math. So eventually I was like, I started, you know, making my dad proud, and I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And so I started going for my English major, then I was going to go to law school.
Man, that is just an iffy. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Well, like, honestly, the most common previous job for a lot of comedians is a lawyer, because they like standing in front of people and making a point, you know? So
I feel like that's more like stand-up comedians.
Yeah,
and improv is probably a different.
Oh
background.
yeah, it's a whole different thing. I would have been very weird. so eventually I was like, all right, time to buckle down. So I go into hyper mode, and now I'm like, not only am I caring about my grades, but I'm making sure I get an A or a B. Like, and I'm taking things serious. I'm studying, and I get into the stride where like I'm actually like, you know, doing shit. But then at the same time, there's this light spark. I start dating my girlfriend at the time, and she's an actress. And I went to see her do Little Shop of Horrors, and then it was like, ding! It was like a reminder, like, oh, this is what I really want to do. This is a thing. But it's so funny how
you just saw the commercial up there.
Yeah, everything came back to me. But for a second, everything was just into automation. It's so funny how life can just go into auto mode and you just forget about everything and you just become a cog in the system. And so then that became a spark for me. And so I told her about it, and she's like, oh, let's get you involved. And then we ended up doing a play together. I had a good time, but I also realized like I wanted to do on-screen acting. And then like I listened to this episode of WTF with Mark Maron with Donald Glover. Which which at this point in my career, I got to tell both of them that they're the reason that I'm at where I'm at.
That's pretty great.
But Mark Maron was asking Donald Glover about like improv in LA, and he was like, yeah, there's not that many black improvisers. You know, there's like Echo, there's like Marshall, and he's like naming them off, and like, for some weird reason, I was like on the edge of my seat expecting my name to be heard, because in my head at this time in my life, I was killing the game in the OC. I was like the improv guy. I was in my head, I was fucking crushing it. I was an improv guy. So not hearing my name just lit a fire in me where it was like, oh, that's where I need to be. That's what I need to be doing. This is what I need to do in my career. And so from that day, I think within a few weeks, I signed up for a UCB class, and that just became.
What year was that?
This had to be.
It couldn't have been too like, was it like
it had to be over 5
12?
years ago. So 5 years ago.
I'm trying to imagine Donald Glover being at a point to be on WTF.
Yeah.
And it'd be like between 2010 and 2012, right?
So it was like 5 years ago. At the time, it was an old episode.
Okay.
Because my buddy Matt Apodaca, he was like, that episode's really good. I think you would really like it. You should really like it. And he's told me, and I finally got around to listening to it. So it was an old episode at the time. So this was only 5 years ago. And so I started taking the classes there, and then I started
oh God, what was his old team called? Donald.
The Shitty Jobs.
Shitty Jobs.
Yeah, Shitty Jobs. I remember. I
got called out twice on that show.
Oh man.
I've had so many Shitty Jobs. I save them and go back. But he was only there like one time I went.
Yeah.
Because by that point
I've never seen him do Shitty Jobs. I remember me and a classmate got tickets to Shitty Job, and I was shaking because I thought I was going to see Donald Glover, and she was shaking because she thought she was going to see Ben Schwartz. And I was like, because he was the reason I did all this. For the longest, he was like the guy I looked up to. And both Ben Schwartz and Donald Glover wasn't there.
Oh no, Ben Schwartz has been at everyone I went to, and he was great. It's great.
So I start going. And I'm auditioning. I'm not auditioning yet. Now I'm taking classes.
Okay.
And it was so funny because like maybe 2 or 3 years before, we heard about UCB. Like someone on our improv team in the OC was bringing it up, and I was like, oh, okay, this is supposed to be the hip thing. I go straight to the site. I go straight to the facts, how to perform here. And they're like, take our classes. Like, take classes. I think at the time I was doing improv for 5 years. I was like, what do I need to take classes for?
No shit,
right? It's that ego. And I'm glad that I did do that, because if you go into improv with that ego, you're not going to be good. You're not going to take in that info. So by this point, I was so desperate. Like since I kind of got that fire from my ex, I was very aware how everything just was in autopilot, and I hated it. I hated that I left my dream behind. I hated so it was literally like that scene in Doctor Strange where it was like, teach me. So I went to class, and
Who was your first teacher?
First teacher was Jill Donnelly.
Okay.
Jill Donnelly. Second, and I took Jill Donnelly, and I was just like so enthralled in everything, just because like the cool thing about improv class coming from my world, I was in this very corporate government employee world. Everyone around me worked for the government.
It's not exactly like what you saw when Michael Scott did it on The Office, but it's not exactly unlike it either.
Oh yeah, it's very like, outside looking in, it probably looks so corny, but like when you're surrounded by people who just hate their job, and you look at and you talk to these people and you're like, what's your story? And they've been in the same position for almost 10 years, and you're asking like, what happened? And they're mad at you because you just have the gumption of like, well, let me just try and keep going up. And then like you get to this point, like you now you're in this room with creatives, all these people who like think like you, all these people who want to make bits and jokes. It's just like revitalizing. So then that became my favorite day of the week. Like it was so like, it was literally the most tired I ever was, because at the time I lived in Orange County, and I'd have to take the train to work. So I'd have to wake up at like 5 to get to work at 8. And then I'd have to take the train to LA, and like I'd have to sneak out of work 30 minutes early. And for some reason, no one ever figured this out but I had to sneak out of work 30 minutes early. Then I had to sometimes because of the time frame, because there was one last train that got to LA and it had to leave at 4:30, and I was out by 5. But because of that small time frame and when I could sneak out and like casually get it to work, I would always either sometimes just have to get on the train without paying and get down there and just hope never got a ticket, and just I would be in class till 10, and then I have to take the bus from like Hollywood to Orange County. I'd get home at like 2, and I'd have to wake up at 5 then. But it was the best. It was the best time of my life. Like because it finally felt like, oh, this is the thing I love. This is what I do. I burn through the classes, and as I'm going through the classes, more and more of my life kind of changes. Like I end up splitting from the Orange County improv group. And so I'm doing these classes.
Did you start to see any conflict between the things you were learning at UCB and then trying to bring that down to your improv group in the OC, and they're creating like a performance conflict? Because people who, for those that don't know, because we have a lot of guests that come on here and they just start talking about UCB and groundlings and these other things. Like, they're different trains of thought, and it requires very different game and setup and performance aspects that from school to school to school. And I can see how you get wrapped up in one.
Oh yeah.
And then,
well, what's even more so is they're two completely different types of improv. Short form improv is just like Whose Line It Is Anyway, just short games, not really building a world or character, where long form are these long 15 to 30 minute sets where you're just kind of going by the skin of your teeth, and
it's like role playing.
Yeah. And
honestly,
it's legitimately role playing. Like, that's what you're doing. And you come back and you're trying to you're excited by this, and you kind of get tired of short form. Like, remember, so at this point, I've probably been doing short form for almost 7 years. And so I'm done with short form, and so Matt started taking classes too, and another guy on our team, Eric, started taking classes, and we all were pushing long form, and they all, who not taking any of these classes, kind of know what it is, are just kind of put off by us three doing it. And now we're trying to we weren't necessarily trying to really do that many shows in LA, but we're trying to, if you live in Orange County, doing shows in LA and you also everyone kind of wanted different things too. It really brought to the forefront all the different things you want, and it kind of is what helped me with teams going forward, because you had some people on the team who wanted to just do it as a hobby, and it was fun. But then you had some people on the team who they wanted it to be their life, and those two people can't be on the same team because the team has to be focused. And they can be on the same team, but one has to realize the other. And 9 times out of 10, it's usually the focus guy has to know that this is a hobby team.
I think that needs to be understood, and no matter what you're doing as a creative. Yeah. And I think sometimes that even happens on our own channel, and it happens in Twitch environments, in comedy team environments, and a lot of these things where you have some people involved where it's literally their livelihood and it's all they do, and then you have others who do it as a hobby, and it's not bad that one is the other, but they
Yeah.
need to acknowledge that those two things are different and exist because they are different. They're just different. They're different things that require different mindsets.
Big time, because it'll only create problems. The reason being is because the person who it's their livelihood is going to want a certain level of commitment out of the hobbyist. And the hobbyist is going to be like,
I do this for fun. Yeah.
And they're going to resent that person, and the person who's busting their ass is going to resent that person. Like, it's so you have to be on the same page, or you just run into those issues. So anyway, I ended up leaving that team and going hard in LA. And also at this time, I met this great actress, Shawn Landry, who she's older than me, and I remember I was just telling her, she was asking me what I wanted to do. She was just so motherly, and she even told me, she was like, I feel like I'm old enough to be your mother, so I feel like I have to watch over you. And so she comes up to me, and this was like my first like big LA indie improv kind of event, and they had like a grilled cheese stand where they're making grilled cheese. They had free beer. Everyone, it was like a party, but there was improv going on, and I just like, it was like so amazing to me. And so this woman, Shawn, she's an amazing actress, comes up to me and she's asking me what I want to do, and I kind of give her my situation. She was like, okay, cool. It's like, so you doing commercials? And I was like, well, I'm not really an actor. And she was like, yeah, you are. It's like, what do you think you're doing when you do improv? You're acting. You're just not using a script. And so she like, and it was so funny because up until this point I had so many questions when it came to acting, but no one was able to give me a good answer, because instead of people going like, oh, I really don't know, no one wants to say that. No one, I feel like we're in an age where no one wants to seem like they don't know anything, so they would rather give you a bullshit answer than to just say, I don't know. So I got a lot of misinformation growing up, which is why I try and give so much information now that I have it. Because Shawn did that to me. She told me exactly what sites I need to go to, everything. And
which, can I say, from an outside perspective, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to say who in our community, but there's a member of our community who confided in us that you kind of went to him and just laid out a path for him.
Yeah.
And told him, like, hey, this is how you get into improv. This is how you do it. Just go for it. You do this, you do that. And now he's moving down here, and he's gone through UCB level 4 and everything else. So it's just kind of like, I love like knowing that you got that.
Yeah.
You went to someone in our community and gave it right back to them. So thank you for that.
Yeah. It's just, I spent so much of this, because this is, believe it or not, the abridged version. And there was so much misinformation, like that spark that I talked about at my job when I was like, there's been a spark like that where I've met someone who acted and I reach out to them for info and they don't have it. And like, you know, as I've grown smart about the industry, lots of times like people, if you're recruited from college and you have an agent, you don't know about the hustle, you know, because you already have someone working for you doing that hustle.
Oh, you think,
yeah. Yeah, or you think sometimes it can't. But so like I always try and give that information because that legitimately changed my life. Like, because it could have very obviously, I could have just switched places into where I was just dumping improv time and not really going anywhere, because I had the mindset of like, well, I'm not an actor, so I can. But so she changed my life that night, and like I wrote down her advice, took it, and started submitting hardcore. And I just, anyone in the chat who might be doing any type of acting or just starting out, it's really discouraging at first because you're submitting constantly. Like you're constantly submitting your headshot to these casting directors and not hearing anything back. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until like later in my career where like when I had an agent, she was like, all right, don't worry, it's going to be slow when you start. You got to submit for a bit so your casting directors can get used to seeing your face. And that was so true. But at the time, I've already experienced that where it slows and then it'll start picking up. Like they get used to seeing your face. And
I'm a big believer in that monkey sphere. So it's just like once you get recognized, you get remembered, they're going to think of you, they're going to come back. That's why people say go to casting workshops, even though they are bullshit. There's so much bullshit involved with that stuff, because it's saying if you can afford to be recognized, you're being recognized. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you walk into an audition room and they've never seen you before and the person that walks in after you is recognizable, human beings are by nature just as social creatures. We're more likely to form a connection with someone we've already formed one with, rather than take a chance on something new.
Also, as an actor, when you go in and someone's like, "Oh, I recognize you," it makes your audition so much easier. It's like a weight gets taken off because you're like, "Oh, this person kind of knows who I am," so it's not that cold in going in. So I do this, and at this time I'm still doing classes, but like I said, it's one at a time. And I actually transferred to Cerritos College, and because my first 2 years my grades were trash, I transferred so I can have a clean slate, and then I would just have the units, and then I would have a 4.0 there and go. And there was this huge administrative error where I had to wait another semester, and that was it for me. I was like, look, I put so much work into trying to graduate college, and I'm going down a career path where I don't need a specific degree. I was like, let me see what happens when I just put all this effort that I've been putting into school into my acting. And I just got a call that I booked a pilot for this bio channel docudrama, Drugs Made Me Do It. I was feeling good. So I do that. I was real hyped off of it, and then that started I feel like, of course you'll get two different sides from this, but I feel like that started the riff in that relationship with my ex at the time. And I feel like if you're dating someone who you're in the same field with, take a second and really digest and see if you can be able to support that person even if their career is going better than yours.
Yeah, if they succeed before you.
Yeah, because if you can't, that's not a big deal. Not a big deal. And because I had a friend who there was this, like, we went to some event and this very attractive woman was playing a ukulele, and I was like, oh, she plays the ukulele. He's like, I could never date someone who does the same thing as me because I feel like it'll always be a contest. But knowing that prevents that from happening. But some people can. But anyway, so that happens, and then like now I start getting this huge resentment towards my job because it's like a 9 to 5, and I don't want to be there, and I'm starting to make waves. Not really, but at the time in my head, I'm making waves in the career I want to do.
Thank you for the quick host tonight. Honesty Hour is cool. Zach is okay. Thanks, seriously, Clara. What's up? How's it going? Thanks for tuning in.
So then that so that happens, and I'm gaining this resentment for my job, and now I'm I start kind of calling in sick for auditions, and at first, it's happening every now and then, so it's not a big deal. But then, like I found out later, casting directors start getting used to your face. I'm calling out more and more, and now it becomes a problem. I ended up getting suspended for work for a week because of having so many absences. And what sucks, the worst thing is, like, my dad is a like higher up at the job, so like it's even worse because my dad's getting mad because he's like, people are coming to me telling my son, and so it was like causing this huge rift. So I knew I had to get out of there soon because and so eventually I end up getting on a team at Del Close Marathon in New York. So I was
shit. So you did that
in my first year of doing.
Get the fuck out.
My first year, and it was just some weird
some
late night show. Because I remember I said I was going. I was like, I'm going to go, and it was actually a friend of mine, Erica Heidelwald, was like, it's not worth going if you're not performing, because like you can't get into the party space. And I was like, oh, word. And she was like, well, let me find out if anyone's looking for people for their bits. And my buddy Hunter ends up doing this show, and he puts me on. So now I'm a performer there. So I'm flying to New York. I just booked a short film, Spinners, and I'm gonna need to be in the desert for a week for that. So I need Friday. I was going Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to DCM, and then on a week back, I was gonna need a week off to do it. And I just got suspended for absences. So I put in my 2 weeks right then and there. Actually, I think I put in a 1 week. I was like, I'm gonna quit.
It's something that if you've been working in that kind of environment for a long time,
yeah.
This is a step that is so terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Because any stability,
yeah,
or any sense of normality with your expenses that you had before, you just said, "I fuck it."
Yeah.
It's a scary time when you do that. It's a big jump. It's a big fucking jump.
And it was a wreck too, because like
had you if you were given a 1 week, you hadn't really prepped for it either, had you?
Yeah, I was just kind of like, I just kind of did the math in my head, and I thought I was just gonna wing it, and I was like, well, I can't get fired, because if you get fired, you can't get like, because I was there 5 years, I had money, because they take money out your check for your retirement, and you could just take that money so it's kind of like a severance, and I couldn't get that if I was fired, so I knew I had to do it. But then, of course, since I was going to do it, I had to tell my dad. So I told my dad, and he was not having it. And the idea that I wanted to do this acting, and he hated it. It was from a place of the whole reason he got.
Sure, it's worry, right?
Yeah.
Because you see somebody who's worked a bunch of years in something, who then, without knowing, and I understand. My parents kind of went through the same kind of stage, and it's just like, to them, if it's out of their mind, and they've never seen how this could work, and they know that you don't come from that upbringing of it's just going to be handed to you, even if they know that you can achieve it, they also are not going to see, no one wants to see someone they care about just be like, I'm about to give this up for sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice, because that's what it takes to succeed as a creative.
Oh yeah, and that's what it was, and the whole reason he got me that job is because he just thought I would never finish, college, and I just remember I told him, and I told my mom, I was like, I would rather try and do this and fail than to be sitting at that job 30 years later wondering what could have been. And like, my mom was like, I totally get that, and she was good, but my dad was like, because it just was so unfathomable, and so he wasn't really feeling it, but he still wanted to support me, so like, he still was like, all right, but I could tell he didn't like it. So I go, DCM, rocked, amazing, come back, in the desert in Joshua Tree for a week shooting this short film, and I'm thinking, I'm thinking I'm gonna be in this because it was a SAG film. I'm like, I'm gonna be in this. I'm gonna get my SAG card. I'm gonna be a movie star. It's a wrap. It's over. First things first, the SAG film, since it was an ultra low budget short film, it didn't qualify me to join SAG, which I wouldn't have been able to do anyway, because that whole like initiation fee. A lot of people, like,
shit ain't cheap.
Well, yeah, and it's so funny because, I feel like a real like older, kind of grizzled wannabe veteran when I say this, but a lot of people look at that initiation fee as like, oh my gosh, you gotta pay that. I need someone to help me pay that. It's like, I feel like that is, how in RPGs and action RPGs you have skill checks, and I feel like that's what it's like, because you become eligible first. When you're eligible, you can pay that and go, or you can wait till you must join. And a lot of people.
Well, then there's the bullshit stuff where you can be eligible, or you can be like held accountable too if you don't join.
Yeah.
At a certain point.
Well, that's
you won't
must
get
join.
fucking work.
That's must join. So after you do one SAG thing, you become eligible.
And for those that don't know, and we just have to assume, we're talking to a lot of people who may not know the industry at all. The Screen Actors Guild, it's union. I have my own thoughts on it, but I'm not an actor, so it's kind of like, it's very different for me in my experience. I've just been around friends and had to hear their troubles and tribulations, and how a lot of people just want to do cool shit.
Yeah.
But then you also want to be protected.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't get work without it.
Yeah. So that's the tricky thing. But lots of times is like, if you book a commercial or if you book a guest star, you're going to be able to pay that initiation fee.
Oh yeah, especially commercial.
Yeah. So I think that's what it was. It was so funny because I got Must Join right when I booked a commercial, and I freaked out. But they're really reasonable. Like, it seems so, when you see it in print, it seems so rough, but like I called them out, they're like, you got like a 2-week grace period and all this stuff, and we'll do a payment plan. And so I did that, but like I made the initiation fee and then some. So I think, it seems rough when you're doing like smaller gigs and like Taft-Hartley.
Yeah, it's really hard for some people stay in that trying to get a commercial thing for fucking years and it never pans out.
Well, it's a grind, but a lot of people then jump and like do their web series, Taft-Hartley themselves, get in, and then they can't book anything because they don't have a resume. So it's like a double-edged sword where it's like, because I remember I used to always be telling like, my actor friends about it, like all this, and they're like, don't worry about it, just do it when you're ready. Take the time now to get all those non-union gigs while you can, do it when you're ready. And I remember like after I got it, when I got into SAG, I didn't have a manager and I didn't have theatrical representation. So pretty much I was just going out for commercials and that was my only shot. And there was no one really sending me out for that stuff. And so you think like, oh man, it's a wrap. But then you start collaborating and doing more stuff and then that leads into it. But let's go back. That was a huge tangent. So I can't, I'm not even SAG eligible, and I come back, had this amazing shoot, and now I'm back in my like apartment, and I don't have a job.
Yeah. And then the real hustle begins.
And
Audition
that's
after audition, rejection after rejection after rejection.
But that's when I started working with Darwin. So I started working with Darwin, and we'll keep that short and sweet. But like, he was the reason I was able to stay afloat for a bit. And then eventually, like, it kind of hit me where it's like, oh, I could just, I just need to do regular stuff. I forgot that whole period of my life was a blur. Oh, I started working at the Improv, and that's when I really started making money again.
I remember that.
Yeah. But between that, it was like this, like I had to have my like kind of reality check moment, because everyone, it's very magical. Like it really it's like when you're trying to do what you love and you get those first few wins that feel like your home run, it's very easy to get caught up in that and think it's done, but it's never done. It's never going to be done. When you choose, when you choose a life like this, you're always going to be grinding.
Well, because the expectations never change either. I mean, what I guess I mean there is that in media there is 1 out of a fucking million can pull some shit where they get on a serial show that pays royalties for the rest of their fucking lives. So yeah, the cast of Friends never has to work again.
Yeah.
Great, good for them. 1 in a fucking million. Everyone else are laborers. They bust their fucking ass. And the expectations change. The second something comes out, it's not like, cool, I did my thing.
Yeah.
I did it. I'm doing shit now. It's like, nope, immediately there's someone right behind you that's going to up you. And you got to keep going.
And so like, luckily, I think that's one of the biggest hits a lot of people take in Hollywood, is I feel like it's so much work to get out here that when people finally get out here, they feel like they've done it and that they're done, and it's not. Like, it's like, luckily I lived out here, so like I kind of I hit the ground and I was already running.
Yeah.
Versus like, I think people, like I had my one little reality check and I was able to just.
I was very fortunate to have some people talk to me right when I came out and kind of sat me down. Because I knew my personality type, where I'm just like super hardcore.
Yeah.
And they tried warning me not to sprint, but I haven't really stopped. But they're just like, don't feel bad. It takes 5 years for almost everyone, no matter how good you are, how successful you are. It's going to take you 5 years to build up contacts, get everything in order, like get your name out there, all that stuff. Like, it's usually for most people 5 years, and it's not necessarily about somebody making it break. It's about the long distance run. It's about not giving up, because you'll get a win and then you're going to sit, and you're going to get a win and you're going to sit, and you just got to keep going.
Look, that is probably the most true figure. Like, I'm at my 5-year point. You know, like, so
I'm at my 5-year.
5-year point.
But I left for a year, so and it did. I know this. Me leaving for a year, holy shit, did it put me back a couple of years. Oh, yeah. It really did.
It really does. It's so weird. But like, yeah, so 5 years, I got my album. And it was so funny because a comic friend of mine, Ian Carmel, he came down and he came down and he was working for he was writing for Chelsea Handler's show, and then like he came out with this album, and then like everyone was like, man, he got his album at 5 years, that's crazy, and all this stuff, and I was like, man, that'd be cool to get my album at 5 years. Here I'm at 5 years, and I'm like, oh shit. You know, it is kind of like you build up, you make fans. That's the like Hollywood way to say it, is you make fans, and you don't just get down here and you just do as much as you can, and you try and say yes as much as you can, and that's really what kind of helped me out. And I think what kind of the way I've done it is something from my dad, and my dad likes to, you know, always like to collaborate and meet things. That's why when I got to Socialtron and I saw that, I tried to bring you there, like, and that's kind of what worked for me, is like, if I meet someone, I want to connect them with people that works, because I think, you know, everyone, like, the biggest thing everyone's afraid of is to like lose a contact to someone else, but in reality, when you help a friend find a contact, they're waiting to pay you back. Mm-hmm. And the moment they can, they will. And it's happened generally every single time, but it's so easy to get so competitive when you're down here. But there's enough room at the table for everyone. Trust me. And it was really...
My experience has been, at least in our group,
yeah,
you know, in this scene,
yeah,
it's not that bad.
Yeah.
It was totally different when I was doing some other work in the commercial field. But the second I started working with the comedian scene, there was much more of a feeling of like, everyone knew someone in that group was going to blow up.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Everyone knew someone in this group is going to fucking make it.
Yeah.
And just behave yourself. Yeah. Like, help each other out.
It is so crazy. And like, we'll fast forward because that's pretty much the origin, and then you know, we all know. So I'll jump to cool things, and then I want to actually hit some of these questions too.
Are coming in, yeah.
So when I first joined, you know, Donald Glover was like my, like, you know, unbeknownst to him, mentor. And then I went for my diversity scholarship, and by this time I've seen Echo get up on Winslow. Mm-hmm. And so like in my interview, I mentioned how I looked up to Echo. Like he's where I want to be. And I don't know if word got back to him or he's just a cool dude, but that year, that was my first year at DCM, I bump into Echo and I'm like, oh my goodness, you know. And he's like, here, let me buy you a beer. And he bought me a beer and we sat, and then ever since then, he's kind of been like this, you know, older improv brother to me. Like,
oh, no way.
Yeah. Like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I like one time I sent him my reel and I was like, you know, tell me what you think, and if you can, like, send it to your manager. He sent it to his manager.
That's awesome.
I never ended up getting signed by them, but his manager sent me on 2 separate auditions, and then like eventually by then I got scooped up by someone else, and then and like I remember, and then just me and Echo kind of got close from there. And I remember when I found out, like, because I've seen Echo, like, once again, that grind, I've celebrated his success so many times and then hit him with so many, like, damn, that sucks, you know, messages. Like, he got Ben and Kate on Fox, big role, all over billboards, that's my boy, it gets canceled. Then he does Sean Save the World, same thing, all over billboards, it gets canceled. And then he's on Arrow, and I'm losing my shit.
Yeah, he's Mr. Fucking Terrific now.
Yeah, I remember I texted him. I was like, why the fuck didn't you tell me? I was like, what? And he was like, remember at DCM this year when I said I had something to tell you and I never got to tell you? He was like, I was going to tell you that I was Mr. Terrific. And so, like, so that blew my mind. And then, like, you know, and then we just get into all types of goofy stuff whenever he's in town. Like, since we both have this addiction of shoes and video games, that's why I got the switch for him. And then it was so funny because I was like, I don't need this right now. And then, like, And like I was like, who wants the switch? I did it, and he was like the first person to answer, and he got the switch, and it took him forever to get it from Vancouver because he was in Vancouver shooting, and he gets it, and and he was like, you sure you don't want? I was like, yeah, I'll be able to find it, and I did. But then like so there's like cool moments like that, or then you got like Lamar and White Women. He and once again it's all this kind of like collaboration putting us on. A friend of ours, Phil Jackson, who wrote on Key and Peele, he gets on the show Survivor Remorse for Stars. Then he hits up Lamar because he's leaving, and he gives them Lamar's pilot to take his spot. Lamar gets on Survivor's Remorse
No
now.
way.
And then Phil goes on to write on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And then Lamar leaves on New Girl, and he tried to do the same thing for me, but they ended up filling the spot already. But it was just like interesting seeing the people come up around you. Like now my buddy writes on New Girl, Phil's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's already like, and I told him, I was like, look, when y'all need somebody, he's like, it's not even a word, dude. I'll throw your stuff.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, because I don't know how many people in this community know, like, because we jumped a couple steps there, which is fine, because we're covering your whole backstory here. You had improv. And then you started doing, some stand-up, but you got into writing somewhere in there, and then you ended up with a job at Midnight.
Oh, yeah.
Right around the time, like, we were towards the, like, halfway, like 6 months into, 6 or 7 months into being a Geek and Sundry, you were like, hey, man, I can't be around as much more because I'm going to be writing for At Midnight. They'll give me a job, but Geek and Sundry won't hire me on shit. And I was like, you got it. Go for it, dude. Do what you got to do.
That was insane and serendipitous in its own way. So basically that moment when I was like, I'm taking this serious, and I start like within my like third improv class, I moved down to LA with my ex at the time, and with my girlfriend at the time. She was my ex at the time, and I like buckled up. And when that happened, I was doing improv and stand-up. I was hitting it. I was like, it's time to do this. So that was 5 years ago. Technically, I've been doing improv for almost 12 years, but I've been doing stand-up for 5. But 5 years ago is when I took my career seriously. So I come out doing improv classes, and then at some point I was like, I got to do sketch classes too, because I need to be writing. And then White Women, luckily, we started doing sketches. But through connections, I did a podcast called Yo, Is This Racist? And me and Andrew T, the host, got really close. And I did an episode. Then I came back to do another episode, and he was like, yo,
which, by the way, everybody should check out that podcast. It's really great.
Yeah. But he hits me up, and he's like, hey, I'm making a pilot for this, and I pitch your name for one of the hosts. I end up like auditioning for the pilot, taking it, like I was so hyped for it, I was amped. I ended up going to like the screen test with the host. It was between me and some other guys.
Dude, I remember this.
Yeah, and they went with the other guy. But everyone loved me so much they ended up putting me in one of the sketches there. So I did that. I talked with some of the EPs, and they were like, yeah, we thought you were real funny, blah, 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 blah. Then I do Workaholics, and I do Workaholics because my mess hall team, I was on a UCB house team called Mess Hall with Jen D'Angelo, who wrote for Workaholics, and Ben Rogers from Shitty Jobs. And they both knew me because through improv, and they just happened to write this role that was like, Ify would probably be funny in this role. And I went to audition, who was it? No, it was this other comedian. For some reason, I thought it was Sinbad, but it wasn't. It wasn't Sinbad. It was this other comedian named Shang, which blew my mind because I would look at his stuff and I'm like, oh man, I'm going against him. Well, I'm not going to get this. But I ended up acing that audition, booking that role. And when I'm on set, the same EP who EP'd Andrew's pilot EP's Workaholics, he was like, oh, you're really funny. I was like, he was like, I might have something for you two. I think you're so funny. And then my lit agent hits me up and was like, yo, they want you to submit to At Midnight. And so I work my ass off on this pilot. I send it to Demi. I just met Jordan Morris doing a Rooster Teeth show, and I know he worked on it, so I hit him up for notes. And I just sent my best pilot, and apparently like they still did a blind read just because they wanted me to submit. It didn't mean that like they were like, all right, here's Ify's. They just did a blind read, and just on my merit alone, I still got it, but I got the opportunity. Which is one of the things that I talk about with diversity is no one is looking for handouts, they're looking for opportunities. And that is just a lucky experience I got through just,
No, but that's bullshit though.
Yeah,
it's not luck, because you being a professional and generous person on set means when those people see you again, they remember you and they give you the opportunity, because this is a person who's working their butt off and is a pleasure to be around and is good at what they do. Had you not performed that way on set, they'd be like, fuck that guy, we're not going to offer him shit. So I think yes and no, like it's fortunate that they gave you the opportunity, but they gave it to you because you conducted yourself in a way that would make them want to.
Oh yeah, no, I just mean luck in the sense of just the timing of everything. Because like if I would have, like for example, if I would have went to taking UCB classes 3 years ago, I would be with a different class, but it is like, also being like, just committing to everything you do and trying to be as funny as you can, yet still being yourself. And that, I feel like that's, important, because if you reap what you sow, as they say. So if you kind of put on this kind of, I don't want to say attitude, but you put on kind of this face that you think people will like. Basically, if you try and be who you think people will like, that's who they will hire, and eventually you'll learn that that's not who you want to be, and you end up in a shitty position. So like, I think just being genuine and just honestly like approaching things. But yeah, so I got into writing, so I submitted and I got on there, and I was real bummed that I wasn't able to just make it both work. I think I was still able to do No Survivors for a bit. Till things change. I don't know. Anyway, and I started doing that, and I was real excited, and it was serendipitous because I just found out that I was going to be a dad. So I was able to have this like chunk of stable money come in, and now that I'm doing this with like acting stuff, just really kicking off, and it's been a good few months, and it's only rolling, in a good place.
You still haven't sent me fucking treatment for.
Oh yeah, I promise I'm working on it.
All right, man. Don't fuck around, dude.
All right, let's hit these questions. All
right, guys. So we're gonna answer some questions with the chat. I did see Aurelian just post losangeles.ucbtrainingcenter.com. Yeah, that'll get you the general information.
Yeah. That's that's the classes. Those are the sites. They go quick. They're fun.
It's interesting because when I first moved out here was when it was just starting to blow up.
Yeah.
And it was like right when it was right around the time all the casting directors were saying you should take UCB classes to all the actors in town. So then you ended up with an influx of people in UCB classes that were actors trying to get 1 or 2 UCB classes on their belt for their resume for commercial roles, because there was like this shift in the industry where all of a sudden, oh no, it was years after the writer's strike. So it was like, it wasn't the writer's strike that pushed it, but something made commercial agencies decide, let's make sure UCB is on their resume, because we're going to want to run a bunch of improv takes. And it maybe it was like the influx of digital.
Yeah, I think
because you could roll takes longer. You could freeball it a little bit more with your actors. I don't know. It's curious. I'm sure that it had a lot to do with. There was a year there where everyone that got hired to Starting Out Live was UCB alum that year. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. It is a good question of why it became a standard. I know, Amy Poehler has a lot to do with that.
Oh yeah.
Her blowing up and it being the school she started definitely has a lot to do with it. But it just became an LA standard to where now it's like either you've taken UCB or you haven't.
Yeah.
It's just.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely the LA standard, but that being said, I've still met a majority of the working comedians I know through that environment.
Yeah.
And I've never taken a UCB class. I just used to be there a lot, and I shot a lot of stuff for UCB people. and it's a great group. There's a lot of people who are really hungry and busting their ass, despite the churn of the, level 1s and level 2s.
Yeah.
Once you get past the 4-state, that group is prolific.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the people who got out of it 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm just like, they're all working in TV. They're all the people you see on commercials. It's wild.
Paul Russ Loving,
It's everybody, man.
Yeah.
I fucking
love, not loving.
Yeah,
Loving
love
is
on
the,
Netflix. I mean, dude, it's fucking every time I turn on the TV, it's like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
I know. Like the first few times, you're like,
kicking
whoa,
it out.
whoa, and now it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, after that big push in Saturday Night Live where everybody got hired from UCB, and then it's just been fucking everybody showing up. Krellin asks, Ify, do you regret ever saying anything about strength and gorillas?
Not at all. It's
Immediately Alienator follows it up with, do you regret anything?
I think I try not. It's impossible to not regret anything, but I try not to dwell on things too hard because I like to believe that everything happened for a reason. I think one of my biggest regrets is kind of like not realizing sooner. But then like you meet like older comics and older actors who's like, you're just a young baby. You ain't seen nothing yet. So I try not to get too hung up on that. But like that's about it. Just like that. Yeah.
Somebody's saying something about strength and gorillas, and then Chris Ode immediately follows it up with like, Ify, what's your favorite part of your Seattle Hyper Studio experience?
Oh man. It's so funny because I think my favorite part of Seattle Hyper Studio was just one, like finally meeting all the Seattle cats, because I remember when you went up and I would just watch all of them and just meeting a lot of them, just being in Penny Arcade, like I really downplayed how crazy that was for me to be up there, because I remember the first PAX being announced and wishing I could go there, and like I used to read their comics religiously, and so like being in there and seeing all the shit on the walls was amazing. And then but just like going and like Algeron, meeting him because he was a brother, and I was like, oh man, that's the Seattle brother. And like, it was cool kind of like seeing him, and like also like kind of seeing them all work in that, like it was, I guess, all of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
Which brings me up to a point I wanted to talk to you about tonight. A lot of people, anytime you come on camera and then you and I just start talking, or you just, you're yourself, people act surprised.
Yeah.
Like, I like this version of Ify. Ify, and it's like sometimes they forget you're an actor.
Yeah.
And that we ask you to do a job.
Yeah.
And to play the heel sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And I think it'd be interesting to talk about. We've talked about bleed on this channel before, and how some people think that characters bleed over into the real person and all that stuff. And it's like, what's that experience been like for you of knowingly going into situations where it's like, all right, I'm gonna play the villain.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna play the heel, and I don't expect people to like it. But then having them flip that and start saying like, Ify is this, Ify is that, and you're just like, what the?
I mean, one of the, just kind of like being like a nerd, and like just going through life with that kind of lens. One of the coolest things I think I've ever read was when the actor who plays Draco Malfoy talked about how people would like boo him and hate him in real life, and like that has always been super cool to me and super powerful, because it just means you did a good performance.
Oh yeah, you affected them.
But also it taught me not to take it personally. I do sometimes feel like, I do want to clarify, that it was just a bit, just because I know some people, are sensitive of certain things. Like, for example, like Romello Jones was straight up kind of rapey, but it was also just a play on a very popular trope that has been in all media, which is like, you win someone's heart by defeating their boyfriend. Like that has always been such a thing. So it's been like such a huge part of like fantasy, such a huge part of like every kind of nerd media we ingest is like if you beat up the guy, you get the girl. And it was cool seeing like how it did make people uncomfortable because like, yeah, it is a very, very sexist way of thinking of like this, you think this woman can't choose for herself. That being said, I'm always just like a huge character, but I've always had a huge personality, and I'm large, I'm loud, and I'm optimistic, which has immediately turned people off of me sometimes. And before it used to really like get to me. Like I used to be very concerned. I always wanted everyone to like me. I always wanted, and I think just generally most creatives are like that. You just want everyone to like you.
This is where we're definitely opposite.
Yeah. I constantly will sometimes get in my head about interactions with people and whether I make them feel some type of way. And lots of times it's just me overthinking it. And it's so funny because a lot of people always wonder like, why does...
And not to be presumptuous or anything like that, just purely as a question, because this is something that people I've had on before have talked about. As a person of color, do you think any of that has to do with race? Like feeling like having to be likable in situations to not appear as a threat?
See, it's always interesting, yeah, because, I grew up in Compton, California, and I was in Compton for as early as I can remember till about 7th grade. And so there was always this kind of like, you're in danger feel, where it's like, there's gangs, there's all this. And like, I am a big dude, but I never was like a fighter, like never into fighting. That's never been my thing. But like one thing that always seems to like work is getting people to laugh, getting people to like you. And I just saw kind of the power in that, and the power within, you're friends with somebody that someone else fears because they like you. It pays off and all that. But I think what really kind of like helped me was, not helped me, I guess, but really changed me is like when I went to Downey, I went from like almost never seeing any white person, where it was just black and Latinos all the time, to just being in a predominantly white space. And just, I kind of just wanted people to like me. And I remember like, still to this day, I think she hates me, Tina Koo. And from 8th grade, I just had this really, growing up, I feel like I'd say almost black nerd of my generation has this weird like kind of like, for lack of a better phrase, yellow fever, where like, and you have to kind of learn to step aside that and learn that it's fetishization. It's very weird. But like, so like, remember I'm going into 8th grade, and for the first time I'm seeing Asians, I'm seeing white people for the first time, and like eventually like Indian people. And so like, first Asian girl, I like immediately like tell someone like I have a crush on her. And I learned very quick that nope, like that's like because like you could tell your friends that, but if you're just telling someone else, and so like she immediately hated me for that. Like hated me. I don't know why she hated me. I don't know if she got teased or something. But I don't know, I just picked up very early on that like it's better to have a lot of people liking you, because then they can protect you from the people who don't. And I just always felt like the need to be friendly eventually. And this is all, I don't know when it started, but just eventually, like, because I was always a bigger black dude. And I always felt the need to, like, I remember.
Like a disarming tactic?
Yeah, because I remember I was walking home and this guy was kind of like, I was jokingly like messing with him. And I remember he said, I'll never forget this because it's insane. But he was like, you think I'm scared of you because you're black? I wouldn't care if you're green. And I remember it being weird because I wasn't trying to intimidate him,
Yeah.
but he was very obviously intimidated, and it was very obvious because I was black, because he like
The way he worded it.
Yeah, the way he worded it. Like, and I was like, I would hope that you'd be afraid of me if I was green. Like, that's not normal, my dude. But so it was also like I just got hit with so many things. Like, I'm seeing different races for the first time. I'm also like experiencing weird racism for the first time. But like, it never was like straight up. Like, that's the thing with California is like you don't get that good old Southern racism right out the gate because people know you can't be like that. So I think it's just a defensive tactic in general. Like, I think, you know, definitely as I got older, it became like, because I was a person of color, but just growing up somewhere like Compton, where you just, you know, you're surrounded by like people who, you know, are just on a dime could be pissed off and just want to shoot you, you know?
Well, going back to all the conversations about bleed and character and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it always bothers me too when I see people in the chat room reacting that way, because it's just like, to us internally, you are one of the most generous and kind individuals that have ever come through the studio. And then when you see people in the chat room, it's just like, oh, Ify, oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're just
Well,
like, oh, gosh. I mean, that just means you're playing a good character.
Yeah, but also it's it is interesting because you have, like, I don't know, I feel like certain big personalities, you know, are jarring for some people, and you know, without and I come from the school of like stand-up comedy and weird alt comedy, where if people hate something, I just keep doing it until they get Stockholm syndrome and then they like it, or you know. So I think, like, you know, people will think back on things like that and just be like, oh my God, if he's gonna run this bit into the ground, or if he's gonna do this, or if he's gonna do that. But yeah, it is interesting. I will say, like, sometimes, like, I'll see a thing someone's mad about, and I'll be like, oh man, I don't get why you're mad about that. But to be honest, like, it never really gets to me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I get overprotective of you guys as hosts.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what people say about me. I'm like, I get why you'd say that. But when I see somebody saying something about one of our hosts, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
fuckers.
I know.
Like, oh, you guys don't know. You don't even know.
Yeah.
But you know, it's impossible. Like, people shape opinions very quickly on the internet.
Yeah.
Based off very little evidence to shape that opinion, which is like, especially on something like Twitch, because they feel like it's a more intimate setting.
Yeah.
And they think they know.
Yeah.
But they don't. They don't have any idea. Negiyama wants to know if you've ever thought of actually going into wrestling or camp or training of any kind.
There was a time it like legitimately crossed my mind for a bit, because I had a friend who did it, who like was taking classes and stuff, and like this was like earlier before I came to LA. I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu too, but then it was like that kind of machismo where it's like, well, I'm not gonna do the pro wrestling, I'm gonna do the real thing. In the end, I ended up not doing anything, because like my fucking team would hate for me to do any type of physical anything. Like they'll like you become like, now like you become a product, and like they don't want to damage it. Like, I remember I was reading how Michael Jordan loved riding motorcycles, and once he got signed to the Bulls, they made him stop riding. And because, you know, like, everyone remembers when I got a black eye at the beginning of Geek and Sundry. I had to do Comedy Bang Bang. Luckily I had like 3 or so months, but it still didn't go down, and I was so nervous about it. Like, I even called them, I was like, hey, can I have this black eye thing? And they're like, oh, it should be fine. And like, I get on set, and like, here's the thing, like, no one, when you're an actor on set, when you're talent, everyone treats you like you're so important and so nice, and so like no one, and yeah, because a lot of people are just so whiny. Like, I always feel weird when when people are like, thank you for doing this. Like, no, thank you. Like, you're letting me do what I want to do. But, like, I do think, like, yeah, some people are just fucking divas and just are gross.
Well, it's the kind of way the entire industry is built, and it's a very fragile system.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't... I get why it exists to some degree.
Yeah.
Because when you have a system that has people showing up into an audition space and are constantly being told, you're worthless, you're worthless, you're worthless, you're worthless. Not outright, but you feel that way.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're being rejected constantly.
Yeah.
If you don't then have the extreme opposite ego boost.
Yeah.
You know, because the people you're working with on set, I think deep down, everyone knows they make the sauce.
Yeah.
You know, it's like your grips, your gaffers, your producers, you know, like they're showing up day in, day out, never resting, nonstop, doing the labor, all that stuff. But the actor sells the face. The actor has to have a positive attitude to perform well. Yeah. If an actor comes into a situation not feeling 100% comfortable, they can't do their job.
Yeah.
So there's this like facade that you have to keep up where it's like everyone kind of knows it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's important that that bullshit exists because you need the extreme opposite that comes with that like constant fucking rejection.
That's what's so funny.
It's so much rejection.
That's honestly one of the funniest things about acting is because everything up until you book that role, you feel like shit. Like you go into the audition, everyone's like, all right, get in here. All right, what's your name? All right,
done. Next.
Slate. All right,
done,
and then so you come to your callback. All right, come on, let's go. All right, what you doing? All right, when can you do it? All right, can you make this work? And then you're like, all right, cool, yeah. And then you get on set and they're like, oh, thank you for doing this. You know, it's like a word because it almost felt like you guys didn't.
That's
want
important.
Me.
If that didn't happen, why you wouldn't feel as much like you want to show up.
Yeah.
You know, like that's I think why it's partly very important that balance because the actors have to go through a much harder extreme than the grips and the gaffers. Do, you know, like they might be putting in the labor, and at the end of the day, like without them, you don't have a fucking movie.
Yeah.
But they also don't have to like put their face out there and have the whole world be like, fuck that person.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Oh yeah.
You in that movie, you ruined that fucking movie. You did that terrible. The gaffer just shows up, smokes a cigarette every 20 minutes on break.
Yeah.
Gets paid, but you know, it's it's whatever. Okay. Let's see. We have so many questions, so I'm going to try to pick the ones that we haven't discussed at all.
All right,
and make sure.
I'm going to just snag this one because it's so interesting. Who is this in blue? Is that Zagaris?
Yeah, that's Ricky.
Yeah.
That's fucking Ricky. Ricky's been around since STL.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Man.
He was like, what made you decide to have a Twitch wedding? I mentioned it as a joke. So, like, obviously, if we're being, like, full disclosure, obviously, like, the wedding process for me and my wife was rushed because we had this baby coming out and we originally were going to wait till she was born and then have it. But like with the birth coming up and just different, like just money things that we needed and just kind of like legality stuff, we decided we were just going to do a quick wedding and then we'd do one in the future. And I still would like to do another one in the future, but you know, we eventually did this apartment wedding, which, you know, was really sweet and nice. I actually ended up liking it way more. It was great, but like, I just made a joke of like, oh, maybe we should stream this. And my wife was the one who was like, yeah, no, you should totally do it. Like, you know, they're a part of your life, right? Then it'd be cool if you had it. And it actually being real beneficial because a lot of my friends who couldn't make it
were able to watch.
Were able to watch.
Malika and I have actually been talking about doing a reception that way just because we do have people all over the country who'd be unable to attend. And it's like, oh, you know what? That's kind of multiple purposes.
Yeah. You'd think, but like I had like my cousin in London who was like, I'm so glad you did that. I was able to be there and I felt like I was right there. And like all these different people and like all my improv friends who were just out of town doing a show, they said like they were backstage in the green room huddled around. It was like really sweet. And then like having you all there was super dope too because you guys, you know, are a big part of my life. And like, you know, I do think about it a lot. Like I think like, you know, basically the way I look at, you know, because you have to brand yourself when you do like, you know, TV stuff and all that. And I kind of like look at what I produce on on the internet, like what I do. And I look at like, Twitter obviously is my joke machine. Instagram, I don't post there as much because I want to post good pictures and good moments and not just shit out everything that I go. Facebook is just really my Facebook where it's probably
argue with people.
Yeah, just argue. And I've actually toned down on that.
Yeah, you have a little bit.
Because I just thought, pretty much what I do is I start arguments and just leave. Because I feel like there's no reason, like usually my status is my thesis. So if you're going to argue with that, I'll just let my friend come in and argue with you. But my Twitch has been kind of like the BTS, the behind the scenes of my life, where it's more personal. There's things that I say on my Twitch channel and on Twitch here that I never will tweet about or like say anywhere else, just because I look at it as I do kind of try and treat it as more personal. Obviously here I'm doing more bitty stuff and all that, but usually when I'm just at home chilling, it's just me, So that's kind of that's kind of what that is. Also, someone asked earlier, I'm just rough the quick ones. Someone asked, what was it like hanging with Cameron Esposito? A few people saw Cameron Esposito posted a pic. I shot some Take My Wife today. I got 2 more days to shoot. I'm going to be in an episode. And it was cool, but like me, Cameron, and Rhea have been friends for a little while now. They have a show at UCB called Put Your Hands Together, and like it's so funny. Like that was the show for me to get on. Like that was the show that if I felt like if I was on it, I made it, because like all these big names were on. And then like you go and you do the show, and it's a great show and it's a cool ass show, but it just becomes another show. Like,
yeah, and you do your job.
Yeah, like the thing is like you're just never satisfied as a creative. Like I thought like once I got at midnight, it was a wrap. It's good.
The second you get there, what's next?
Yeah, I sent an email to my agents when I got there. It was like, all right, we need to figure out what I'm gonna do after a year of this, because this. And it was so funny because like they ended up not renewing my contract just because of just because the network had a few requests, like they wanted to bring in some other writers. But I remember I was like, it's kind of like if you wanted to break up with your girlfriend and she did it first, and you're like,
oh man, this really sucks. What about her?
But I wanted to be the one, but yeah.
Savage Punch says, Ify, Sarah describes Zac's wrestling persona as someone like Mr. Glass from Unbreakable. What do you think Zac's wrestling persona would be, and what would his finisher be?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I feel like Zac really plays into that like Triple H, the Authority, and I feel like Zac would put his body on the line and probably do some kind of moonsault. Because
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Because he like being in pain. So I'd say he's more of a Triple H guy.
Cool, great. He was Sabretooth.
Oh really?
Right? In X-Men.
Was he? I don't know.
Wasn't that who played Sabretooth in the first X-Men?
It could be. I don't know.
That's the only thing I would know him from, unless I'm completely wrong. Eridance asks, is there an aspect of DK that you're really looking forward to exploring on Vanquished in Volume 2?
Yeah, without spoiling.
Nope, he wasn't? Okay, I'm way off.
Okay, yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Without spoiling too much, there's some fun stuff I did, because I think me and Zac, back when Vanquish was still getting set up, we were like, I got done reading the book and I hit him up and we just kind of were like, ugh. And like there's some I put a lot of just be paying attention to the stuff Zac's dropping, because there's a lot of nuggets that are built into DK's backstory. Like it's not just just his brother, and there's a lot of thought that was put into that, and Zac's trickling it in. I just basically gave him the pieces and was like, look, you do what you need, what works, but there's I'm excited to see what he does with DK's backstory, because it was long as shit. I wrote a huge chunk ass deep, because I thought about it. I from the moment like Valiant was like, "Yep, this is part of our digital universe," I was like, "Okay, well then I'm gonna give Zac some stuff to play with to create some stuff." And I tried to write DK's backstory as if, one day maybe they will try and like incorporate DK in some kind of aspect. And there's some more stuff that I wanted to play with, but I didn't want to, like, I just wanted Zac to have fun and and not like dictate like this is how it has to go, because that's just not fun RPing, period.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we have definitely, I think we've steered away from some things while doubling down on others. And I think Volume 2 won't be as go, because you need now a volume to get to know you guys. So hopefully I can find enough stuff to keep it really fun and interesting. We'll see. I get some stuff cooking. Let's see. Commander Dunsale says, Ify, what has been your deepest non-pop culture geek nerd passion? And could you please demonstrate running a 2040? You don't have to do that, but what's your deepest non-pop culture nerd passion?
Oh, man. Non-pop culture nerd passion. I guessed. That's a really good question. I guess, this will be I'd say it would be like artisan like coffee, like trying to make artisan coffee. Like I really make a lot of effort in like getting good beans and it's really mostly like was pushed by Zac, because Zac would have his AeroPress and like I brought an AeroPress at midnight because of that. That shit got jacked.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I forgot it over one of our, we had a hiatus and I came back and that shit was gone. But then I bought one of these like drip joints where it's like a goddamn beaker and, those like super like drippy drip joints.
Is it a cold brew or is it an actual like siphon system? Like
it's a siphon system, but hot, and you just let it bloom, and then it's so funny because like all that aside, I have a deep place in my heart for like shitty diner coffee. So like I'll do that for chock full of nuts. I'll do it for like I'll get like specific like Dunkin' Donut brands because I don't know. I just feel like there's lots of times in life, like I like being out with friends, and if I want to have a conversation, we're sitting at some diner and we're getting there like shitty coffee,
pancakes,
exactly,
bacon.
So
egg.
like that. So I'll still like
those
get
are script writing meetings, man.
Ooh boy, yeah,
for sure. Marb wants to know if you've won a game in Players Unknown Battlegrounds yet.
No, but but fucking Kyle has won like 2 on my account, and like. I feel like
on your account,
because like Kyle doesn't have like a gaming PC, so he games on mine, and like he's always been like, "Oh, is it fine? I don't want to mess up your." I was like, I don't really care about records and all that, and that was the first time I almost wanted to ban him, where I'm like, "Fuck, you got a win before me." So no, I have not got that yet.
Let's see. If you could trade lives with another person for a whole day, who would it be and why?
I think if I could trade lives with one person, I mean, I'm sure this will be a surprise to no one, but I probably would do Kanye West. I want to see what his daily life is, because I was actually talking with Cameron about this today.
What if it was like, what if you switched right when he was in the middle of a meeting with Donald Trump?
Oh, then I'd have to take that shot. I would just take that as a sign
that you're like now gonna have to be best friends with Donald Trump. That's your sign.
That's not the shot I'm talking about. That's not the shot.
That's the only shot you're talking about.
That's it.
As being best friends.
Yeah.
That's what you mean. You're being best friends with Donald Trump.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting because like, because like he is like everything he's done lets you know he has this like disconnect from the world. And obviously with the psychological break, you know, and you could see it on his face if you go back and watch like the video where he's like shaking hands with Donald Trump. Like it was very rough for me, because like you see in his face that like he's just not there. He's like, because like
my favorite clips of him are where he'll be like smiling and then notices the camera's on him and like,
yeah. Oh yeah, that's great, because it's like such a conscious decision where he's like, it's like a creative decision, and it's one of those weird like idiot savant things. But like with when I saw that video with Donald Trump, like it was really rough for me. Like I almost went into tears. Mostly because like a few years back, my older brother tried to commit suicide, and he like drove to like the 91 freeway, and he like sat on the top, and he was trying to jump off. And I remember he called my phone, and he was like saying that he's sorry and told my dad he could pick up the car from here. And I remember I just like told my dad what was up and just hopped in my car and drove there. And I was the first person to get there, and there was the cops there talking to him. And the look he kind of had in his face when he turned around and looked at me, like it reminded me of that when I saw Kanye West like that, where it's just someone who's just not all there. They just kind of just had it. There's things going on that you can't see. And like I was like, and it was like literally the day after he like left the institution, and like if you're over 18, you get to say when you leave no matter what. So he probably wasn't even all there yet, but he was like, I gotta go see Donald Trump. There's this, you know, especially with how much, so like it was just rough for me. It was kind of shocked me, and it took me back, and then but also like him being like, yeah, I guess Donald Trump's not a good guy. And it's like, literally, dude, you're like about 2 years late. Like, you know, like, and also it's like I want to still hold him accountable for like, you know, shitty things he does. And that's, but like the big thing, the reason like I look up to Kanye West so much, I used to hate him. I used to like, in MySpace, I think I said this on stream, like in MySpace, I had him as like, they had who I'd like to meet, and like you would edit it HTML, and I edited it to who I'd like to beat, and it was Kanye West. And it was back when I was like super Christian. I was like, he said he was better than God. No one's better than God, because God is God. Anyway, but Kanye West taught me 2 lessons, one early on, one later on, more recently. In the early, like I said, I used to always want to be liked. I used to always care what I liked. And one thing Kanye West taught me just watching him is like, if you, like it would, because the craziest things that I've had is where like I'll have people be like, I hate him just so much. And then you'd be like, the music site was like, yeah, the music site. Like, and so like, that's taught me where it's like, people are going to feel how they feel about your personality no matter what. You can never change that. Nothing you could do, because people have a certain expectation for people, and you have no control of what they want out of people. And if it doesn't vibe for you, like if someone was like, I want somebody who hugs me all the time and smiles, you as Zach knows you're not going to fucking give them that. You can't give them that. And it's not on you to do that. You're not supposed to change for anyone. But when it comes to the product that you are trying to give them, if it's good, it's going to be good, and you got to be undeniable. And I think that's just in any creative industry, is you got to be undeniable. And also just to not be caught up on what people think about you. I see so many actors and creatives just so caught up on like what people think about them, what someone tweeted at them, what a comment says. And I'm not going to discredit how it makes them feel, because it's going to make you feel like you feel. But my life got so much better once I stopped giving a shit. Like it,
100%.
because I got to
you start
focus
letting people
on,
who don't care about you dictate your emotions.
Yeah, and because you'll learn very quickly that a lot of people aren't even mad at you for you, but they resent your happiness. Like for example,
fucking was it Lil Yachty?
Lil Yachty. That's what I was just gonna.
It's been so good. It's been so great.
It's like that's the perfect example.
But it's Joe, right?
Joe Budden.
I'm Joe in that situation.
Yeah.
I'd be the same fucking way. Fuck you. What the fuck do you know?
How are you happy?
What the fuck do you know?
And
But then at the same time, you'd have to check yourself and be like, nah, like other people deserve to be happy as much as I deserve to be fucking miserable.
Yeah, and that's literally what it is that, and you come across that in stand-up so much. Like I remember, I like came up to this guy, I met him for the first time, and I get this a lot when I talk to a lot of stand-ups, specifically if they're like an East Coast stand-up. I'm like, hey, what's up? And all this, and they're like, oh, you're just like a positive kind of kumbaya. I was like, yeah, I fucking love life. And I think it is kind of like that thing where some people just want negative energy, and you gotta look like you gotta look at like who you want to surround yourself with. Like are the people who are not liking you that you're fighting to get to like you, are those people you really want to be around with? Or are we just doing our natural human thing of trying to get people who don't like us to like us? Because at the end of the day, that's what it is a lot of time. A lot of times.
Some of it's that. I think on the internet, sometimes it's not liking, but respecting your opinion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not like liking so much as it is respecting that you have a voice.
Yeah.
And that your voice deserves to be heard and not shunned.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I think it also comes down to you just got to know how to sift out what's a criticism and what's someone being a dick. Like because
it's hard sometimes.
Because one thing like here, like let's talk about in real life. If someone comes up to you and they have a legitimate grievance with something you did, but they're coming at you cursing, calling you names, you're not going to listen. You don't
90% of the way people speak to us online, you would never do that shit in public. You would never, especially to like people like you and I, like I'm intimidating for different reasons, but people don't talk to me in public.
Yeah.
And you're not going to come up to me in public and say the shit you say online.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't fucking do it. And it's just totally different.
So it's generally like, because I've had times where like, people have a genuine opinion or grievance on something I've done and they word it in a respectful way, and then I'll address it, and that's how I do it. And I don't think I'm perfect, and that's the second lesson Kanye West taught me, is he's shown me what happens when you don't check yourself, when you don't give a shit at all, when you think that you are right about your perception of yourself and how you look at yourself, and you can see the negative aspect of it, when you become disconnected. Like that's one of the reasons he's disconnected, is because the shield he put up, especially with the death of his mother and a lot of the things, even though I don't really like bringing that up. One of my biggest pet peeves is when someone has like a grievance about Kanye's behavior or something he did, and they bring up the death of his mother. I think it's very unfair to bring up someone's loss in your reasons of why you think this, that, because you can never understand that. I've never lost a parent. I would never understand that. The only way I'm bringing it up right now is I can only imagine I would never be able to handle that, and that I would probably hole up and create a wall. But there's so many people who like try and say like, what would your mom think? And it's like, you don't get to say that. You don't even, you've never known his mom.
Everyone's experience is different.
Yeah, you've never known his mom, and you can never, like, I don't know, just where I grew up, you just never bring people's moms into anything, Even this guy on Counter-Strike named Sand Nigga said that he was Russian, he was like, we will not talk about mothers. But like, it's like you just don't bring people's mom into it, especially if they've passed away. It's just gross to me, and it's just gross.
Well, it's interesting that that's who, I definitely wouldn't go that route, though I am curious. I'm intrigued, because I don't give a shit whatever about that stuff. Like, I don't necessarily care about people's drama and their lives, but I do find people who have that facade very interesting, because that there's something else going on there. There's a lot deeper things going on there when someone's trying so hard to put on a front and an act for camera. And I mean, most people would immediately be like, oh yeah, you're hiding something. Like you've got something deep inside that you're overcompensating for, and that's usually pretty easy to see, which is the same as YouTube commenters. Yeah. That's what's funny, is like, it's the same type of insecurity and trait that causes that. You know, we talk about this a lot here because we often in the office read YouTube comments out loud to each other and laugh our asses off because they're so sad.
Yeah.
And they're so desperate. And it's like, we'll find out that like the people that will post anytime a trailer review goes up, there's a large group of people that will just post something negative, and then you click their name and you look and see that they've posted the exact same comment on other people's reactions with the same target. Just like change the name of who's speaking. Yeah. And it's just like, you have got to be a really, really fucking sad individual that you're trying that hard to get some sort of negative attention from random people on the internet.
Well, I actually was looking into this because I have a friend who really gets affected by that stuff. So I sent it to her where there's a psychological explanation of it, and it's called leveling, where you try and bring people down to your level by leveling the playing field. And it can be many ways. It could be just nonsensical stuff like that, or it could be the way some people like look down on like any type of celebrity who's done something wrong. Like, for example, if I'm trying to think, there's nothing recently that strikes my mind, but like,
I wouldn't know about it.
But just any type of like, or like not even celebrity, but like, say, so like say you, all right, let's get raw. But like, for example, when Erica of a while ago was talking about I think it was Kubo or one of the movies, but she was talking about how like the whole cast was white, there was no Asians, and she jokingly said it has so many crackers in it, and people got mad, and for some reason that I'm still mad about to this day, the Geek and Sundry folks made her apologize to the stream. So they made a person of color apologize to a group of falsely
94% white audience.
And look, here's what go down. One, like, a lot of people don't even know the origin of cracker. A lot of people think they're talking about that delicious little snack that we put peanut butter on. But cracker comes from the slave times, and it's short for whip cracker. So even when you're hearing the insult cracker, it's you're still being put in a position of power. That also being said, it has no effect. Trust me. As a person who's been called nigger and tried to yell that in defense, only to hear back laughter, and who has, you know, it's this. But I feel like there's this faux reactionary offensiveness that we're starting to get, where it's like, well, if people want to be offended by this, then I'm gonna be offended by that. And it doesn't make sense, and I think we can't give in to that. Now, you know, if for some reason it really does hurt your feelings, you really do feel hurt about it, then I can't do anything about that. You can't do anything about it.
You can have a conversation.
You can have a conversation.
You can't change the way people feel about something, and you can start a conversation, a valuable one.
Yeah. But when you try and halt the discussion about the lack of diversity in something by being faux offended by something, it's muddy to me. Because, you know, but that's that. But like, that's leveling and it was beyond. It probably wasn't a coincidence that it was when she was talking about the lack of diversity that this leveling immediately happened, which is where they're like...
Well, I can tell you where a lot of that happens, because it is something we see on the regular here.
Yeah.
And it goes... It's an interesting thing, because I feel like there's... Do I think they should have made her apologize? Fuck no. I think that's ridiculous. Yeah. Would I, if I was the person in charge of that situation? And I talked to Lucas about it too, and I think he reacted the exact same way I would. When you get off camera, you're like, yeah, probably don't do that again in the future.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Some people are going to be affected by that.
I mean, we
probably shouldn't do that.
Worst case scenario, it's still inflammatory. Like you can't take that away. You can't take that away. You can compare and contrast, but it's inflammatory.
Right, and you can just say, probably not a good idea to do that. But we understand that the reason a lot of that happens is because we know that our audience is predominantly white.
Yeah.
But they want to be allies.
Yeah.
They want to be there, and I know you've brought it up before, like sometimes the best thing to do is just listen.
Yeah.
Just listen. And when you try to drive the conversation, you're not listening to that problem. And I think that they want to be a part of the conversation. There's a lot of white guilt.
Yeah.
Like a lot of white guilt.
Yeah.
And when you, like you said, when you're having a conversation that's about diversity and the people watching, and this is something we've experienced to an extent, especially with that crew, because they get called out a lot, and not called out. They get treated like it's an insult. People are calling them like social justice warriors and stuff like that. But it's an interesting balance, because we'll tell them backstage too, like, I don't know, guys. Like, if it's the same people watching every week, and every single week they're being told they're the problem, they get very defensive.
Yeah.
Extremely defensive. Mm-hmm. And then it creates a closed door in that way.
Yeah.
And they react knee-jerk to the second something paints them in a bad and negative light. So they're on the defense, and they're looking, and it's like, we're the problem. Yeah. We're the problem. And now I'm this, and I'm upset. So it's like there's better ways to handle it in a professional setting, but I think asking someone to apologize for that is coming, especially when it's like an entirely white company asking someone of color to apologize to a white audience. It comes off from a very ignorant place.
Yeah. And also, like, I think, I know it's very interesting because there is like this you're the problem aspect of it that's been like, I don't know, I feel like obviously, like, when you have a truncated amount of time to talk about an issue as deep as race and all this stuff, I feel like it's hard to like help people discern what's being like hyperbole and what's being like actual, like you. And I feel like a lot of people take it as if like if someone's like, man, white, like white people do this, and you're white, and you're like, I don't do this. It's kind of like the not all men thing. It's like it's very obvious. Like it's just easier. Of course.
Or blue lives matter.
Of course. Like when I say fuck the police, I'm not talking about the police that put their neck on the line and risk their job to try and persecute. Like there was an officer who just arrested another officer for assaulting a citizen, and that's what. That I'm not saying fuck that person, but when you get into like debating hard issues, that's when everybody wants to be a super syntax. Everything has to be said right because it's harder to sit back and digest, but it's a lot easier to just make an argument happen out of thin air because you're attacking the way something's being said. But in the end, you're tone policing. And I think in the end, if you just like, don't assume everything is about you, because a lot of times it's not.
It's not.
It's a lot easier.
I'll fix that.
I feel, for example, like, sorry.
You're still going.
Yeah. Sorry for all this, roughness that's about, but like, one of the biggest, things is like, back, I feel like in the black community, when, we were having a lot of issues just, with just the faithfulness, men sticking around for their kids, all this, you heard like niggas ain't shit a lot from women, from black women. And, I don't know, like I've never been like, no, but I do understand that everyone's at a different place when they're hearing these things.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard.
I think that's part of the problem sometimes with that show in particular, is their frustrations that are being put out by that cast, because the people that are primarily watching at home are white people who want to help but can't because they're white people in the middle of nowhere who can't control how people are being cast in the industry. They have no say in all these things. They're taking it as if it's an affront on them when those guys at that table are mainly saying, fuck the system.
Yeah.
And what, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, the system is old white men. Yeah. So you have to learn how to like separate yourself from those comments and understand that, yes, they might be saying this is a problem, but it's not looking at the people who are watching directly eyes and saying you're the problem. Yeah. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, it gets taken that way but it's also hard to like that.
Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, it's where you are. Like, if you know, like, generally that people speak in hyperbole when they're talking about social justice issue, which is oftentimes the case, because it really is hard to make an argument when you're like, well, this is happening because of this exact
percentage of people,
because but the real thing is, like, when discussions like that are happening, you know, you don't do it, but because it's the same way, like, if you're working in an office, it's like, you know, some people are using too much printer ink, and then you got to go, I'm not using too much printer ink. No one's talking about you, Ted. This is just a general problem we're having. Like,
we're actually trying not to call out the one individual who's doing so, but now you've made it an issue. So yes, Jeremy, you're using too much fucking printer ink. Thank you, Ted, for making this a fucking problem.
Yeah, and it's just how we speak as humans. Like, if you really think about, like, you know, like, think of, like, how many times you've fucking, like, said, like, I hate people on Reddit. Like, you don't, like,
you don't actually mean you hate
every single person on Reddit, or you feel like, I hate Twitter. You don't hate Twitter. Like, it's just literally how we talk, but because we get into this sensitive mode when we talk about tough issues, we want to nitpick everything to make sure that nothing is said that I can take, because, like, it's just like, even if we talk on a smaller scale, if someone was talking about an issue, like, man, you know, someone's eating up all the cookies, and it's roommates, everybody besides the person who brought up that is going to be wondering, like, is he talking about me? Am I eating too many cookies? And it's just not like that. And that's just what it is. I think
somebody brought up a point earlier that I think I would like to hear your opinion on, because I think this is important for people in the audience to hear from someone who is a person of color. Somebody said something of like, well, she still used a slur, and no matter who that slur was towards, she would have to apologize, right? And I think, no. Again, it would be handled differently if it was done here. And in fact, it has happened here, and we have dealt with it differently. And you don't know about it because it was dealt differently. And that on our end, and I'll see what you think about, because what I want to hear from you is explain to them how you can't, and the issue of racism, if you're speaking to the ruling class, it's not that whole ordeal. But
I mean, I think generally the idea that that is being tossed around is like, the fact of the matter is, if it was a slur, it was, but like, I think this is gonna be the hard pill to swallow, and some people might disagree.
Well, Jim's already displaying. It's like, if a white guy said the N-word or a black person, you know, then they have to apologize.
Cracker's not a slur. I literally gave you the definition of cracker. Like, and here's why, and just in case people aren't getting it. So if you say nigger, or if you say, you know, that C word that was once a chink, you are using a word to dehumanize a race of people. There is no other, nigger isn't short for anything. Nigger is just a word that was created, as I think it means like selfish. And chink is short for chinky-eyed. Like, you're looking at an attribute and you're dehumanizing. Whip cracker is a description of a person who cracked whips on slaves, which was who? I know, the Egyptians, as I guess. So that's the main difference in the word. Cracker isn't dehumanizing white people. If anything, it's just like saying like, oh, this slave driver. The problem with it is no one knows the origin of it, which should already let you know how much of an extension of like, oh, this is offensive should go. That being said, even furthermore, if you need further evidence, look up the discussion on cracker versus N-word on the news, which word weren't they able to say? And there's also behind that you have the history. What's the history of the N-word? It was something that was said when black people were being murdered, hung, beaten,
and is still used to
enslaved,
this day as a tool
to remind you of that.
And to belittle an entire race of people. There's a difference between that and a word being used by someone who is in that marginalized group to describe someone who is in a position of power over them, which is what it was being used in that instance. Is in this situation, there are enough people in a position of power over me as a person of color, not me, but in the case of Erica. That is basically the intention behind the words. And at the end of the day, the intention, words to me, it's the intention behind them. And there's a different intention behind those words and the weight that they carry. And also, somebody brought up in the chat, power has a lot to do with where these words.
But also just the sense of like, that's why like people don't know like cracker was in vogue in like the Jeffersons and all that, because it meant whip cracker. Like you were giving the power to this guy like, oh, he's my slave driver. And even and just one more step further, which I hope I didn't forget, but I think I did, further into this discussion, which I'm seeing it as a discussion, not an argument, and I'm not taking anyone, personal, but like, it's like the reason is there's no history because if it's technically racist against white people, there's no such thing as white people. That's why you can't say white power. It's not, white power is a racist thing only because there's no such thing as white people. You can say Irish pride. You could say Scandinavian pride, but there's no such thing. White is a generalized grouping of a mix of cultures that you're trying to say is better. That's why you can't say white power. Like that's the big argument. It's like, how come you say black power but not white power? There's no such thing as a white race. You can say Irish pride. You can say Scandinavian pride. You can say Norwegian pride. No one's gonna stop you from saying that. But as far as white, there's not a white race. Like white power was created in just the power of racism, Like I think there's that disconnect where like there's a picture painted of there being like a disjointed effort where it's like, oh well, we can't do this, and lots of times it is like saying that, where it's like And
in some ways though, you do have to understand, no, you can't.
Yeah.
When you are the ruling party and you're a party that has in fact held others down and there is documented facts to prove so.
I would say if you are a part of the party. I want to word this specific just to prevent everything we just described. Mm-hmm. And here's the way I was thinking about it, and this might still be
because this isn't a problem that exists only in America with white people. Like these are problems that exist in Asia, to Japanese, to Southeast Asians, or to Mexico, to Guatemala.
I mean, this is a problem that exists in Brazil with darker Brazilians. Like it's somewhere in our makeup we just kind of all humans, the human race, kind of broken down like the darker people we're gonna be mean to. So you have that. Even just like Asians constantly deal with that, with the treatment of darker skinned Asians. Like it's just a general human disease. That's what I look at racism as, is a human disease. Now look, I know that it's real touchy when you want to talk about like, just the reason why one thing is racist, one not, because a lot of people hear like, the ruling power or the party with power, and they think of like, well, I'm not having this power. I grew up poor and white, and and there's many ways to approach this.
It's tough, man, because like where I grew up, there were no black people that lived there to be the people at the end of the chain. The poor white people were the people at the end of the chain. So there, in their mind, they're like, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah. But it's just like I described, well, it was on the Krillnet podcast, so no one actually on the channel saw that. But it really is like the rich, white, and powerful is shitting on everyone. But somewhere along the way, the rich, white, and powerful has been able to pit poor white people onto black people as the reason that they're sucking up the resources and all that, no matter how much data comes out as like
and
white people being
now especially not just poor black people, but
just any person of color.
A person of color.
Yeah, but like in the end, like it's so hard for people to realize it because it's easier. It's easier to see. Like you have this perception, and it goes so much. It goes so much deeper than like than we think, because it's literally ingrained in the media we ingest. Every time you watch TV and someone does a crime, if they're black, you see a picture. If they're white, unless they like looked method out and crazy, where like people would be like, whoa, you'd never see the face. It's so deep. It's so deep, but it's like,
well, sometimes the descriptions are the most.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, like sometimes they can be so blatantly shown, you think by now people would go, oh, we just did that thing.
Yeah.
We got called out for that before. We better not do that thing anymore. But it's like the way they'll describe, I mean, the woman who was raped by the white boy who was on the swim team.
Oh, Brock Turner.
And the way they describe that in the media, like swimmer, blah, 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 this. And like, instead of, I mean, it's so like obvious. You can sit there and compare and contrast. These are not things that are now speculative. They're things that we have documented facts to provide towards. That's, I think, the other problem, too, is often when you get in these discussions, there becomes an argument because it puts everyone on blast to where they get defensive, and it's like, oh, this is speculative. It's like, no, we have to stop pretending it is. We have to stop pretending it is. There is documented evidence to support all these things. We have to stop acting like it's not. You have to accept it first to move on from it. And if you keep fucking dancing around it, you're never ever going to move past it. You have to accept that responsibility.
But someone said, "Do you ever think that the rich white folks do that to keep the rest of us from getting together?" Yes, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
The like you see. Here's the thing: is like a lot of people, and it's a human condition. I don't even look at it as like, oh, they're trying to be evil. It's a lot harder for people to have empathy for something they have no perception of.
Oh, 100%.
So
100%.
So like if you see poor black people and you've never met a black person, but the only information you got of poor black people is from the media saying that they're usually drug dealers, crime lords, everything you've seen on TV, then of course you're not going to have any empathy for them, and you're going to look at them as taking handouts.
And this is important because this is what happened where I'm from, or if you see them as people who have to be saved by you.
Yeah.
That shit used to drive me crazy, especially when I worked in other countries.
Yeah.
You'd get the Bible-pushing white Christians that would be down there saying like, oh, it's my job to save you, instead of giving them the tools and the resources and then get the fuck out of there and let them do it. It's still looking down on them as a culture and as a people, as if you, as the white person, have the, whatever.
Yeah. And just like a general just note before we move on, because I will try and answer some more questions.
Oh, we don't have to. Honestly, we can.
Okay. Yeah. But like, that being said, the like semantics of, whether the word cracker is racist or not. That's just the semantics of it. But if it genuinely hurts your feelings, it hurts your feelings, and it's a mean thing to say. Like like that. Yeah. Just because something isn't racist doesn't mean it's not mean.
Right.
And so, and I think it's kind of been this. Oh, it's like, just when you talk about racist stuff, there's generally like this pendulum, and I feel like, once again, like I said, everyone's at a different place where it's at. And when you come from like, you know, a very left-leaning state where you get these like, you know, just hands up white guilt, like, you know, say whatever you want because hopefully this will cleanse my sins, you know. And someone comes from a area where they're just like, I want to help, but I'm still kind of, you know, I'm trying to get on board, and you're hit with like, you know, cracker, and you're like, yo, what? You know, I get that catching you off guard, and I get that hurting your feelings, and I get that you wanting to be like, what? But like forcing someone to apologize for it, you know, especially when, you know, people just negated a whole conversation, it's messy to me. And
again,
also,
and I think somebody said right before earlier that is intention not important, and that's the exact point. Intention is important. When the N word is used, the intention behind it is to belittle an entire people to be lower than you.
Yeah.
And the instance of Erica's usage, the intention behind the word was to say that a group of people above others are currently running the system and holding people of color down. The intention behind it was to say they are slave drivers. They are the ruling class that are holding the people of color down. Yeah. That is in and of itself not be like holding down an entire race of people. That's...
And if we want to really like ride that ball in that same sense where we're comparing things, where it's like generally the sense of like, I feel like as far as I know in my world, and this has just been with me and also white people that grow, cracker has been funny because it's just not offensive. Also because saltine crack. People just assume to a saltine cracker. So she probably came from that sense where she didn't think people would be hurt by it. She would think people was funny that she would use that. That being said, it was like, well, if they said the N-word, I'm going to pause you right there. In the show, Louie, nigger was used, and it was a punchline, and it was fine. And there's tons of comics where if they're making a joke that earns the right to say it, they get away with it. Some people are still mad because you can't control how people react to anything, and you can't police how people react. Just because you're trying to make a joke doesn't negate how someone feels. So it goes both ways, and we're just explaining how it goes both ways.
Oh yeah, there's definitely personal responsibility to be had. Just like you said, these things have happened on our network, and you don't know because we've handled them differently off air in the sense of, hey, you know, we respect your right. This is how the audience will take it. This is how it'll make them feel, and it might need to be reworded in a way that doesn't make people offended. There are better ways to word the conversation. Yeah. That's how that usually can be handled. But in that, it should still be a discussion, and not,
And furthermore, like everyone is right. Like it's been cool seeing everyone in chat be like, like it's like they're trying to split us up. They are 100% trying to split us up.
Oh, to me, one of the funniest shit in the world is that I come from an area where fucking super, super poor people have been convinced that the best way to help the country is to keep rich white bankers in power. Yeah. What fucking world are we living in?
Even think about it. Like Steve Bannon has gotten everyone on the like the liberal Hollywood elite wants to take your money. That's one of his biggest things. Steve Bannon makes $1 million regularly because he helps syndicate Seinfeld. He is a Hollywood elite, but he has gotten everyone to think Hollywood elite is evil, even though right in front of their faces, he is like unabashedly, he didn't make it in Hollywood and he went on to do, so it's
well, I mean, the president of the United States right now is literally Hollywood elite. Literally, he's Hollywood elite. Like, that's his group. Yeah. That's where he came from. I don't know, all this stuff.
Someone asked about the portrayal of people of color in the media, and do I feel like the flip is true where rich white people are always nefarious? And in response to that, I'd say yes, but I think...
Not always, or they're the superhero playboy.
Yeah. And I feel like you constantly see that because it is a general idea that we're very well aware of, is because our world is so impacted by money that literally it really does depend on the person with the money how it's going to impact. They can be he is reality TV elite at best.
Well, no, I mean, yes and no. But I mean, I get really intrigued by the psychology of it all, less so than the politics of it all.
Yeah.
Especially now I've been reading up on all the data analytics sites that they hired and took control of to help with their campaign. And I think that's the most interesting part because it's a new form. And they were like, these things, especially the data behind them, like targeting people on Facebook based on their habits and the things they say to very direct ads. And these are like multi-million-dollar company buyouts that their jobs are to target extremely, extremely direct ads that form a push in a direction towards people who are on the edge. And I find that stuff absolutely fascinating because it's terrifying. It's like the Orwellian fucking age. Like they're literally now running political campaigns through data analytics systems based on all the information we freely give away on Twitter and Facebook. That's how it's phenomenal.
Is telling people what they want to hear. And that's the whole thing is if it's like psychics when you see those shows where they're connecting people with their dead husband, these old women with their dead husband, and you see that like and you're watching it's like this is bullshit, but they want to believe so bad that like they can say whatever they want. I think the same thing goes with the politics. It's like it doesn't matter how many statistics tell you unemployment is getting better. If you're in a situation where you're not getting a better job, to you unemployment is worse than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Because no one looks outside of their situation. That's what has happened. That's what happened because unemployment can skyrocket. People can get more money, but if in your world you're not getting more money,
you think everyone else?
You think everyone?
Yeah.
But
100%. If you target that class that feels underrepresented, which they have a right to feel underrepresented.
Yeah.
But it's very smart in how they target them in a way to make them angry and to get a reaction.
Well, because think about this: human nature makes you more like. Why would you think? Maybe I'm not trying hard enough to get a job. Maybe I should move. Maybe I should change something about myself. It's a lot easier to blame an external source. I mean, I do it all the time. I couldn't find a fucking shrine in Breath of the Wild, and I blamed Breath of the Wild. I said that game fucking sucks. Like it's a human. It's so funny because I feel like we're in a stage where we're afraid to be human. We're so afraid to be human. We're afraid to be wrong. So we double down on our bullshit ideas. We're afraid to look at our own errors. So we will believe any
personal accountability is not something.
We'll believe any asshole who will allow us to blame someone else, and we're impatient. Like who knows what job would have came to these people if we would have just really wrote.
Is the psychology and sociology people now doing this research in these data analytic companies and finding out that Steve Bannon is literally the co-owner of the company that ran Trump's analytics campaign and the Brexit campaign.
Oh yeah.
And how they have the exact same kind of databases and the same tactics were used in both instances. And it's phenomenal stuff. Like it's mind-blowing stuff because one, we live in an interesting age where this shit is even possible. Two, that it can be extremely transparent and easy to do your own research on, but it changes nothing.
Oh yeah.
That stuff blows my mind the most. That even if you have all the power of the internet in front of you, and you can do your own research into these things and see exactly right in front of you, like, oh, that's really interesting, and that makes common sense.
Yeah.
It still doesn't change anything.
Well, it's just a simple thing. Like, I remember there was this joke. I forgot who said it. It was like a tweet or something. But it was like, imagine if someone came from the past, and you had to tell them that you have all the information of the world in your hands, but you use it to look at funny cat videos. Like,
which we do.
It's like, but it's like we literally do have all the information in our hand. You can learn anything. You can, but the fact of the matter is, we have somewhere along the line, we've just let kind of Facebook be our like kind of information tube. And then like it just kind of deteriorated more and more. Like first we were just reading articles our friend did. Then like we got a little lazy and then we just read like the first paragraph. Then we get lazy and then we're just going based off of headlines.
I was going to tell people, there were people questioning, saying that I should do my research on that. I did. I spent like a whole week researching this.
Yeah.
It's Cambridge Analytica. It's interesting. It's fascinating. Cambridge Analytica. That stuff's fucking fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then you get like unreliable sources, and you get these, like just pay for news has really ruined information, because the moment people realize they could just put any inflammatory headline on something and get people to click through and collect money, people stop caring about giving good information. And then now you have to actually want the right information. And I've argued with enough aunts and uncles and cousins and sisters and friends of friends to know no one really wants, the right information. Like, no one really, and actually, as much as I really dislike the oatmeal, they did a really good post where he presents an information with sources, something very easy to take, and he was like, George Washington's teeth wasn't actually made out of wood. That's a myth. It was made out of like it was made out of the different materials. Here's the sources. And he goes, here's another fact. George Washington's teeth was made out of teeth from slaves. And then it gave the sources for that. It was like, and he gave more sources for that than the first one. He goes, how easy was it to take in the first set of information, and how hard it was to take in the next one? And he was talking about how even though he supplied more sources, it was probably harder, and you already had a response ready to curse me out, because it just disagreed with your worldview, and it was really good. It was really, really good. You said it actually didn't give any sources, Drek Fletch? Did I fall right for that shit? Yeah, I was glancing through because I really don't like the oatmeal. Yeah. I know, Alienator, but he did list sources. You got to click the damn sources, Alienator. And I want to explain why I don't like the oatmeal, just because the oatmeal does a lot of good stuff. Once again, we're talking about being undeniable. Oatmeal does a lot of good stuff. But he did this long ass comic about him running. And the whole time he was talking about being okay with running and being a fat guy at run and how it makes him feel good about himself and all that. And then in the whole comic, he shits on people who lifts weights. He shits on gym culture, he shits on, and it's and that's one thing that has always been my pet peeve as someone who lifts weights and is a part of that deep gym culture, is when you start shitting on gym culture to make yourself feel good about not doing the same thing that we're doing, you're just as bad as you think we're being, and so it's always annoyed me. It was the most pretentious fucking comic. I hated it. Holy fuck. Anyway, it was pretty. It was a really good site, and it's very true. And he listed the study that pointed that out. How we will. It's easy, and it's kind of just what we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. Where it's if you're struggling, and this guy, the snake oil salesman, comes up and he tells you, it's not your fault. It's these Mexicans.
Yeah, you're gonna go for it.
It's these Mexicans,
yeah.
And once I deal with them, everything's gonna be great.
And it's usually not as easy as just.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as an immediate turnover.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Oh, yeah.
And it takes constant kind of bombardment of these ideas to break you down and to start making you think, oh, maybe it really is like this. They want to get you at the water cooler talking to your other social kind of group. And they target those groups as well to make sure it circulates in those things. But, that's, if you go on and on about this stuff, whatever. I think it's getting late enough. I have to get up and stream in the morning.
Yeah.
So for those that ask questions in Discord, Ify's in our Discord quite a bit.
Yeah. I'll burn
I'm
through.
I'm gonna put Ify on the spot and say he's gonna go in there and answer any questions he missed.
I'll pop in and do it.
And I think these are great discussions to have on the internet, because it is very difficult to have these civil discussions on the internet.
Someone asked how much I squat. I rep 315 5 times. I haven't done a 1 rep maximum in so long, but my squat, I've been doing a 5x5 program, squatting 315, bench pressing 235, deadlifting 365, and bent over row is just like 150, I think. So for all those wanting to know my different whatchamacallits, that's what I'm doing. Guys, I'm gonna put y'all on game. If you want to get fit, I'll put you on game. But yeah,
if you guys are curious and you want to know how much, what's my body weight, like 170, I can probably squat 170. Sometimes I'm able to get up from a chair without straining, but not that often. Like, I've been sitting here long enough that when I get up, I'm gonna feel it. I'm gonna definitely feel it. So about 170.
Overhead press, I'm 155. I'm overhead press and bent over row about the same. And just to close out, I just want to talk about every time I like to let people know, because the last time we had the race discussion on Honesty Hour, that's the last time I did it. It was very inflammatory. Some people got mad, but it was cool because we mentioned that it was a safe space. There was no bad question, and I want to let you know that it's the same thing right now. You're gonna feel how you feel, and I'm not gonna fucking force you to feel how you feel. As long as you, as long as you just believe people of all races are human and shouldn't be shot dead in the street by cops, we're good. If we can bicker over words and what can be used, semantics and all that.
Often it's just semantics.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. I'm okay with disagreeing with that. That I'm fine with. We're different. We're gonna have different opinions. We're all humans. We all come from different walks of life. I don't care if we disagree. I'm not gonna hold it against you. Just as long as you think people shouldn't be shot dead in the street like a fucking dog at the age of 15 by a person who shouldn't have a badge because they're afraid of black people. If we're good on that, and also, just so you know, I feel like a lot of people freak out because the hashtag is Black Lives Matter, but it doesn't stop there. Black Lives Matter speaks out when white people are killed by the police, when black people, Latinos, Asians. If you are a victim of police brutality, don't think that Black Lives Matter only cares if it's a black person. It just started when it was just very bad, and black people were just being namelessly killed by the cops, and no one was saying anything, and that was the rallying cry. But Black Lives Matter is for everyone. When that white kid was murdered by the police, Black Lives Matter shouted it out. Black Lives Matter, just follow them. I promise you'll be surprised. Everyone has a perception of what it is because, like you said, secondhand stuff. Look, black women, yes, oh my gosh. It'd be another 30 minutes if I went through talking about the shit that they have to deal with and yet they still fight. But yeah, everyone, I love everyone, and don't take anything personally. Respect each other. Be happy. We'll make it through it. We got bigger problems to deal with, so we got to move past this race thing. Or we'll just talk about it as we live through fallout after Donald Trump gets North Korea to bomb the shit out of us. Anyway, I just want to say thanks for listening. Those who stuck around, if you're watching on YouTube, all this stuff. I'm gonna hop in the Discord, answer any questions I feel like I missed, and I'm gonna let Zach get some sleep.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna try.
I guess we'll have to walk back there and shut it off after an awkward emptiness because someone's not.
I mean, sometimes to avoid those super awkwardness, I'll be like, yo, let's write somebody, which we can do. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to Honesty Hour with Ify and I. Appreciate you guys having a civil discussion with us and getting to know your backstory. Yeah. The origin story of Ify.
Ify Chukude.
And what brought you up into the comedy scene. So thank you so much for that, man.
Yeah.
You can catch both of us on Vanquished Wednesday night. Yeah. I'll be here every morning this week. And this weekend, we're doing a 12-hour Trollathon 2017 to celebrate my birthday. But really, I don't give a shit about my birthday. I care way more about the success of this channel. I know, as you guys know, unfortunately, we had to let another show go this week, and we had to let HeroClix go before that. We came to a place at the end of last year where our options were take a big risk or everything goes away. Well, we took a big risk. Some of those risks have paid off, and some of them haven't. So now we're having to scale accordingly, and it's unfortunate, and it's not the way I want things to be. I think if anyone makes assumptions that we don't want a show to succeed, that's fucking stupid, and I will fight you, because that is the stupidest shit. We put our heart and our effort into everything we do. I don't sleep. I don't get to spend any time with anyone that I'm around because this is all we do. We sacrifice so much to make everything we do work. This is our livelihood. It's our career. It is literally all we do. I got up at 8 a.m. I've been working since 8 a.m. It is now 1 a.m. That is a normal day for me. This is all that I care about right now, and this is what matters to me. This is not easy. It's not fun. In that sense, running a network like this is fun, but having to be unable to continue things that you like and you think should is unfortunate, but it is the nature of media and business. And in some ways, I wish you and I could have talked about that a little bit, because you being involved in media for a long time, deal with this all the time. I think our audience isn't used to it because they don't understand how it works. They don't understand the business aspects of it. A lot of times it's like, why doesn't it just go on forever? You did everything wrong. And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah,
it's like, rough. Unfortunately, you can throw blame around all you want, but when we're faced with these hard decisions and there's a bunch of data sitting in front of us, we have to start making decisions. Otherwise, you just don't do anything and it all disappears overnight. And you end up having to shut everything down, which is not what we want. Because like I said, it needs to be understood as well that there are people here who it is literally their livelihood and career, and they've moved multiple states to work here, and their health insurance is tied to it and everything else. And I have to protect those people as well as the people who've invested in the company. And, when people, we try to protect and provide as much as we can for everyone that we can, when we do as much as we can for as long as we can. And unfortunately, it's hard. It's really hard. I wish everything we did succeeded. Believe me, the fact that people sometimes say that we just don't, it's like, I fucking love comic books and we don't have a comic book show right now. You know how much that drives me crazy? I have my own network and I don't have a comic book show on that network. Of course that bothers me. It's what part of my mission in life was to get people hooked on comic books. But if me as a person that has to report to investors and has to look my employees in the face and try to tell them they're going to have a job next month, I can't put my wishes and the things I like above the safety of the entire company. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So we're going to be doing everything we can to turn things around. And like I said, this weekend, though it is technically my birthday party, really we're going to be trying to come up with a bunch of fun ways to help generate some revenue for the channel and ways that you guys have fun with, because we want to keep this going as long as we possibly can and avoid more situations like that. And we're doing everything we can to keep as many shows running strong, and we're always trying to find new ways to do that.
Yeah, but I see why people are mad. I love me some Bronze Girl. She's tight.
Yeah, I mean, I like the show. That's what sucks. I hate it whenever I see a show that I know is good not performing, because that always bothers me. And one of the things that bothers me the most about Twitch is you can do something really good and make it really, really great. Doesn't mean it's going to succeed on Twitch. It doesn't mean people are going to find it. It doesn't mean, and it sucks. Sucks. Yeah, We've done a lot of things on this network that I thought were great ideas and really good shows, and nobody watched. Drives me fucking crazy. Believe me, it drives me fucking crazy. So, what can you do? I try not to just. Bronze girl. I could try really hard not to just get super pissed off about it and get really sad and depressed, because that's what usually happens. I just I beat myself up a lot over it. But instead, we just got to wake up tomorrow and find out how to make tomorrow even better and keep moving forward, and keep it going. So thank you guys so much. Why is it the stuff I watch gets canceled? I mean,
come on. Why are you going to do that, Jim? That's my man, Jim. I was talking. I was talking to Jim. He was like, "What are you gonna do over there?"
Yeah. Well, you know what can you do, guys? It's just if everybody says that when something leaves. It's the same. We had that happen in the past with another one of our shows where it's like we had all this data.
I like this. This is ERVR's last week. I'm like the morning of ERVR. You know, that's all right. Me and Bronze Girl, we're gonna click up. We're gonna do a new show. Tell Bronze Girl, come to LA.
But ERVR was always a temporary show. ERVR has a sponsor, so we ran the show as long as the sponsor was on board. Sponsor leaves, show goes away, so it doesn't end up losing us money, which going forward is our new rule. Because we are in a tight situation, we owe it to our investors to not do things that cost us. So moving forward, we start new shows if and only if there is some of the cost of that show covered, at least some. And believe me, we look for all of our shows. That's a large part of my job right now, is constantly looking for new sponsors.
So if I got like a sponsorship for Bad Dragon, you do it? I feel like I can get a sponsorship from Bad Dragon. Like if it was like, you remember that Dr. Ruth show when she would talk about the sex toys? You know, we could get an old Hollywood lady, do like a parody of that, but just with like dragon body parts. God, that's like a solid show. I don't know if it's Twitch terms of service, but that's a banger ass show. That might be a YouTube show. That might be a YouTube show.
We were good with having in-depth conversations about race. Now I just want you to shut up.
I mean, watch. That's the treatment you're going to get. You're going to get the treatment of that show. That show tight.
Uh-huh. Where's that gaming talk show treatment I've been waiting for 3 months?
It's shelved down. Now I'm going to get this Dr. Ruth dragon penis.
Okay. You going to let LOL Renee know that we ain't going to pitch that gaming show?
No, she'll know. When I tell her about this project, she'll be like, yeah, make sure Zac gets that going first.
God damn it, man.
I'll CC you and baddragon.com.
Okay, all right. No, it's fine. Yeah, it's cool. Whatever, dude. Whatever, though. All right, guys. So we are gonna throw a raid to the #1 Alex to end off the night, guys. He's a lot of fun. He came by here for an episode of
ERVR.
ERVR.
He's a sweet boy. God, that would be a good show.
Shut up. Just shut up, man.
I'm just saying.
You know, one of the things about having sponsors is keeping those sponsors.
But baddragon.com, I feel like they bankroll us. They're like you guys.
Oh, you think they just bankroll us?
Hell yeah.
Yo, you know what?
Who do you think is coming up
Valiant,
to them?
Fuck Penny Arcade.
Oh,
fuck all the other companies.
Dinesh would probably be so on board, dude. Oh my gosh.
Fuck all our other
Dinesh
sponsors.
would probably be. I don't know about the other sponsors, but Dinesh would be like, "That's a tight ass show."
God damn it, man.
Should we get a fucking torque built? Oh God! Oh, I'm gonna call Dinesh now. I'm gonna hit him up like, "Yo, have I got the offer for you?"
Have fun hanging out with #1 Alex. Throw a raid that way. I'm getting it. You know, just.
I'm coming up with banger ideas. Who knew that 12:56 a.m. is when all my best ideas come out?
I'm shutting it down. I'm going over to shut it down.
Woo,
I'm shutting it down.
We're going hard. Come on.